Awesome. Hi, hello, this is Sashi Begor. I am the Vice Chair of the Parks and Rec Commission. Our Chair, Meena, had some issues and will be joining us later today at about 8 o'clock. So until she joins, I will be conducting the meeting tonight. So with that, I would like to call the meeting to order at 7:04. I guess I should have said that first, but this is my first time trying to be chair, so we'll work with my order, I guess. So with that, Jessica, would you please take the roll call?
Commissioner Swamy.
Hi, present.
Commissioner Kumarapan.
Here.
And Vice Chair Begor.
Yes.
And as of right now, Chair Shu and Commissioner Stanek are absent.
Okay. So the next order of things would be the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes that we have to approve. So the first one, which is the April meeting minutes, I believe we have a quorum to be able to address that. But the second one, we would have to wait until maybe our chair joins us, or have to postpone approval of that minutes of those minutes until we have enough of a quorum to approve that, because I believe Commissioner Swamy wasn't at that meeting, so we can't do that right now. So I'm gonna suggest that we postpone it to later today after the chair joins us, so that we can take care of that business then. So for right now, we will just look at the April meeting minutes. So commissioners, does anybody have any comments on the April Parks and Rec, April 7th Parks and Rec meeting? If not, does anybody want to make a motion to approve it?
I can't approve. I can't make the motion, right? So therefore, I'll wait for.
No, you were there at the April meeting, right? You can.
Yeah. So I make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
And for the April 7th one, right? So I second that.
Awesome. So Jessica, would you like to go around and get?
Commissioner Swamy.
Yes.
Commissioner Kumarapan.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Begor.
Yes.
Motion passes with 3 yes and 2 absent.
Okay. As I said earlier, the May 18th one we will handle later. There are no postponements as far as I can tell for this meeting. Is that right? And since we do have 2 attendees, are there any comments that any of the attendees want to make? Please raise your hand at this time. This is with regard to any issues not being addressed on the agenda today.
I don't have anything. Vice Chair Begor.
Good. I was also wondering if the attendees wanted to say something. So with that, were there any written communications? Since nobody is raising their hand, we'll move on to the next topic, which is the written communications. Were there any written communications that we received, Jessica?
No written communications for today.
Okay. And so let's go on to the new business and let's get ourselves an update on the Memorial Park ponds repurposing project.
Okay, I would like to introduce Susan Michael, the Capital Improvement Programs Manager.
Good evening, Commissioners. You can hear me okay? Good evening to everybody in attendance. Thank you. Tonight I'm going to introduce the team that is working on this project, and Ayano Hattori is the project manager in CIP, and she'll be doing the presentation. And we also have Chad Mosley, the Assistant Director of Public Works, and Matt Morley, the Director of Public Works, who will be available for questions following the presentation. Anyone?
Thank you, Susan. Let me take a minute to share my screen. If someone can confirm I'm sharing the correct screen.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, we're providing you a brief update on the city's Memorial Park Pond repurposing project. The project has been funded by City Council and was prioritized with the 2021-22 City Work Plan. The project is located at Memorial Park and consists of 71,000 square feet of concrete-lined ponds. The ponds have been redrained of water since 2013 in response to drought restrictions set by the state. The ponds have reached the end of their useful life and resulted in considerable water loss due to the conditions of the liner. The existing infrastructure cannot easily be rehabilitated as is in need of removal. The city had the area surveyed to facilitate the design of the project. The following slides will provide a brief overview of the proposed work. The city put the project out to bid and the bid process closed on May 12th. The low bidder for the project was Granite Rock Company, and their bid of approximately $1.3 million was in line with the projected project costs. The design consists of removal of the concrete liner, backfill of the excavation, and minor grading and drainage work. The area will be restored with vegetation and minor paving work to enable the public to reuse the area. The project was designed to minimize the need to remove improvements in the future. Much of the project consists of work that need to happen no matter what future improvements the city considers. Approximately 15% of the total project cost consists of landscaping and irrigation that may be adjusted or removed if the Memorial Park specific plan recommends different uses for this area in the future. The northern half of the site includes the pond area around the gazebo and the amphitheater. Restoration of the area consists of various asphalt pads and vegetation coverage. Our area around the amphitheater will be restored with low ground coverage to help separate the staging area from the amphitheater seating. The city is installing asphalt paths around the back of the staging area and around the gazebo to provide better pedestrian connection. Much of the remaining pond area will be improved with turf to enable the public to reutilize the area. The southern portion of the pond area consists of the pond situated closest to Stevens Creek Boulevard and the rock channel adjacent to the playground. The rock channel area will be restored with drought-tolerant vegetation, and the southerly pond area will be restored with turf. The project contract is going to City Council on June 7th for award, and the construction is anticipated to begin by the end of June. Thank you for your time, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, any questions?
I don't have any question at this time.
Attendees, I guess I have to go to the, I do have a couple of questions actually before I go to the attendees. Is that the right order in which I'm doing things? Yes, no, maybe? Yes. Okay. So this was part of the approval for 21-22, or is it going forward? I don't know if I missed that, Ayana.
The city work plan, it was put in the city work plan for 21-22. The contract award is for council on 6/7.
Okay.
Actually, it was an approved CIP project in the fiscal year 21-22 program. So it was both in the city work program as a council priority, and it was in the CIP project list 21-22.
And when it was made part of that program, was there any specific discussion on how much, what was the budget? I think there was a mention that it was within the range, but what was the budget allocated, and how much within that range is this current company that,
if I remember right, the CIP project was budgeted overall for $3 million. Chad, if I'm wrong, you can speak up. And the construction contract is 1.3 million, and there's been some expenditures for the design team as well.
Okay, so we can come back to that, I guess, during the discussion. There was a comment there that said there was the concrete was being removed and some earthwork was being redone. What does that mean? Earthwork was to be altered. What does that mean?
I think Assistant Director Mosley would love to answer that question.
Yeah. So the ponds are set into the ground, and there is a concrete liner that held the water. There's actually 2 levels in some parts of the pond. So when we remove that concrete liner, we're going to have a hole in the ground. And of course, we need to fill that hole with imported soil. And that's the grading work that we're talking about. And when we bring in that grading or that soil, we need to ensure that it drains properly for storm drainage purposes. Okay,
so that's the part where you're talking about when you say earthwork that's to be altered.
Correct.
Between the northern plan and the southern plan, was there anything significantly different, or did I not read it correctly?
That northern and southerly one was just a convenient way for us to kind of show you a closer up of what was being proposed there. The southern pond area, we're going to be putting in turf in that most southerly section. In the area where there's that rock channel, we're going to be putting in some ground cover there that's drought tolerant. In the northern section, there's the area around the amphitheater where we're removing the ponds and putting in, again, low drought tolerant vegetation. The northerly part is mostly turf around the gazebo and the large pond area. And then there's a small concrete pagoda in kind of a central section, and we're going to be putting in drought tolerant vegetation in that area as well.
Those are kind of the questions that I had. I can leave the others to when we have a discussion on this, or if there is discussion time. Looks like Commissioner Kumarpan has a question. Go ahead.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. A couple of quick questions. Maybe I missed it in the update. Do we have a timeline? I know you said the May 12th or something, the contract has been closed or awarded. Did I hear that correctly?
So the city put the project out to bid in April. Those bids closed on May 12th. We reviewed the proposals, and the low bidder was Granite Rock Construction. And we plan to take that contract to City Council for award on June 7th, where they'll award the contract to the contractor so that they can begin construction.
Got it. Thank you. And the second question I had was the plans, do we have the sequence, or maybe if it is already there, I missed it, apologies. Do we have a timeline on when, once it is awarded, when the work gets started on the stages of the work or the sequence of work?
Yes. Yeah, we have a rough schedule. After the contractor's award, June 7th, we anticipate construction starting sometime before the end of June. And we anticipate that work being done within 3 to 4 months, hopefully around the beginning of October. The only real staging that we've anticipated in those bid documents is not performing any work around the amphitheater during the summer sessions with all the events happening there. So they'll be working on the back side, but within the amphitheater area, no work will happen so that we're not disturbing those performances.
Oh, got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Anybody else? Okay. None of the participants. Oh, Carol has raised her hand. So going to allow you to talk. You have to unmute yourself. Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Just full disclosure, I'm from the Fine Arts Committee, but I just wanted to join in because I thought this was a park that I frequent regularly. my question, and if it's been answered many, many meetings ago, apologies, but I'd still like to know, is the expectation that the pond areas that are to be filled in are areas that people will just remain out of, with all the landscaping that's planned, or is there some sort of kind of uh, further space dedicated to people being able to play in those spaces or be in those spaces?
If I can speak to, most of it will be turf, so the public will be able to reuse most of the spaces. Was it?
Okay, that's great. I just I didn't know with some of the descriptions about the landscaping to be put in place if the expectation is that this is space that people will be not allowed within and just kind of observe. So
I think, yeah, okay, thanks.
Right. If no one else has questions, I'm going to move it back to the commissioners for any kind of discussion. Anyone has any ideas on anything you want to comment on, or go ahead, Commissioner Kumarpan.
Great, thank you. Since the work is going to start, and I think, Chad, I think you mentioned that only the amphitheater area won't be touched on it. But since it's summer season, right, so a lot of activity will happen around the park, and these big machineries moving and all of them. What is it? Is it totally still accessible, the Memorial Park, or are we going to completely close down, or what is it we plan to do?
Yeah, we anticipate fencing off the area immediately adjacent to the ponds. So basically, right now the ponds are kind of off limits as it is, and we're not anticipating the construction staging area to be much larger than the existing ponds. So basically, we're fencing off the ponds. You won't be able to access that area, but you should be able to access all of the areas around it. Shouldn't be much more of an impact to the public than what there is now. After the summer sessions are over, there'll be work around the amphitheater area, which could, impact use in that immediate vicinity, just due to access and the work that needs to happen there. But for the most part, the public shouldn't be impacted by the construction activity.
Got it. And maybe the follow-up question is that means are we starting with the northern side of it, because the southern side is the one where you have a playgrounds for the kids, right? So are we prioritizing that way? So even if the kids are,
we have not prioritized the northern section over the southern section. We've only basically screened out the amphitheater area. So with respect to how the contractor does the work, that's actually the contractor's decision on how to perform that work. I imagine, and I don't know yet, I haven't seen the full schedule from the contract, but I imagine they'll do demolition of the entire pond area. And then, aside from the area immediately in the amphitheater, and then they'll probably do grading of those areas and then restoration. And then once the summer sessions is over, they'll do the area in the amphitheater. So that's really the only staging that's happening. But again, if it's up to the contractor how they want to perform their work.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
I have a follow-up question or sort of a comment. So specifically, Ayana, can you put back the southern the picture of the southern plan? Just for a second.
Just give me a moment.
Sure. So my question really is to the Assistant Director, Monthly. So with the southern plan there, I think that's where the play structure is and towards the southern area, if I'm right. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you look at this plan here, that trapezoidal area on the upper right-hand portion is where the playground is located.
Okay, so when they're working on this, they will cordon off the entire area, and the playground area will be clearly still open and quite far away from all the construction.
There will be, yeah, there will be construction fencing between the work area and the play area, so that it's not accessible to the public.
Okay, excellent, because young kids cannot be trusted to do the right thing. So I was just kind of curious. Just a couple more follow-up questions. What other, so I think somewhere along somebody mentioned that some parts of this will have to be reworked as part of the master plan requirements. Can someone articulate what parts will be reworked?
I'll explain that. We're not sure what's going to come in the master plan. The master plan or the specific plan for Memorial Park is anticipated to begin later on this year, not much later, but later on this year. At that point, we'll be collecting public input on what they want to see happen with the park. And with that, there may be some ideas the public wants to see there. And, we would work to bring those projects to fruition in the future. It may be that the public ultimately likes the turf area and that's what stays, or maybe they want to put a basketball court in there. I'm not sure. That's for the public to tell us what they want, and when we go to design that, we'll do what we can to implement it in that area, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, it's fair. We don't know what we're going to be asked to do, but then from this 1.3 million, are we going to be potentially scrapping the entire 1.3 million? Or is there, do we have a detailed breakup as to how much, just say if we take out the turf area, or if we take out just the turf area and the southern plan, do we have the breakup like that?
Yeah, it's not extremely detailed, but based on the estimates we received from the contractor for irrigation work and turf work, it's about 15% of the 1.3 million. So somewhere around $250,000 is turf and irrigation that could potentially be removed or revised to address future improvements. At the same time, what this $250,000 does right now is to allow us to open this area up to the public by the end of the summer, so that the area is usable until the Memorial Park specific plan gets completed. And then we go and choose the projects and have them designed, which could be as far as 2 years out before any future project happens there.
Right. Okay. So it's only 15%. That's the part that I guess I missed in the presentation. I think she mentioned it, but I did not make a note of that. Now, Susan, I have a question for you. You said that the budget was 3.3 million from the CIP, and this particular part of the project is 1.3, and some part of it was the design work. Do we know how much was the design work?
And I can answer that.
Oh, okay, great.
The design work was about $140,000. And again, the construction's coming out to 1.3. We will have some construction management services to help facilitate, construction operations. We don't have an exact estimate on that yet, but we believe it's going to be somewhere under $100,000. And you're wondering why 3 million when it's about 1.5? When we initially estimated this project, we had done it a number of years ago, and it was closer to 2.2. Construction costs were rising extremely quickly, and so we believed it was going to be somewhere around 3 million. And then when we were beginning this, we knew there were going to be a lot of concerns about any work that we were doing. We don't want to be, putting in a bunch of work and then ripping it out later with the specific plan. So we really trimmed this project down to just the bare minimum to get the ponds removed and to make the area usable to the public without doing anything above and beyond or extravagant that may get removed.
Mhm.
So we were able to cut those costs down considerably, and those remaining funds will go back to the general fund or to the CIP reserve when the project's complete.
Excellent. So a follow-up question now. I'm sorry, I didn't get the name of the contractor. Did you say Granite Rock? Or?
Granite Rock Construction.
Okay.
Is their
I guess the name is not that important. You had mentioned, I want to say the correct name. However, you had mentioned that they were awarded the contract because they were the lowest bidder. So what were the other criteria that they met in order for them to, obviously we're not just going to pick it based on the lowest bidder, but what was the other criteria that was used to meet for them to be awarded the contract?
In all honesty, if they are the low bidder and they are considered a responsive contractor to the requirements, they are the ones awarded the contract. That's what the state public contracting code requires, that the lowest bidder who is responsible and can get the job done is the one who gets the job.
Okay, so it's so have you worked with them before? Have they done other projects in the city? How did we determine that they're responsible?
They're a very large contracting firm. They have actually done work for us in the past. In fact, there was a few years ago, back in 2017, when we had those large storms, there was a washout up on Regnart Road, and they were the low bidder on that contract and repaired the road and put in retaining wall, did an excellent job, was very responsive to the public. So we have worked with them in the past, and they are very good contractors to work with.
So it looks like Commissioner Swamy has a comment or a question.
Yes, I had, thank you, Vice Chair Begur. My question was, I heard you say that you might put in a basketball court if there was a public need for it or a request for it. What is the process of determining that? What is the timeline? How do you do? I'd like to have a little bit more understanding of the process.
Yeah, not a problem. Like I said, we are in the process of preparing a specific plan for Memorial Park. And the specific plan will have a very robust public outreach portion to that, where we'll reach out to the public and ask, what we're planning the future of this park. What do you want to see? Maybe the public comes back and says, we don't want anything to happen. We like the park exactly the way it is. That might make things work. It might make things easier, but we're anticipating that the public will want some improvements. And I just threw out basketball court just as a potential. We don't know what the public's going to want. We're here to listen to you and to the citizens to see what they have to say. Looks like Susan would like to speak.
Thank you. I would just like to add to that as part of the Parks and Recreation System Master Plan from 2018, there was also a robust public input process. So we will be using that input as well, but we will take that and open it up again for input with a public outreach process, probably similar to the work that we've been doing for the Lawrence Mitty, the Jollyman all-inclusive play area, the golf course. We're doing a number of public outreach endeavors right now for these projects, and we're going to continue that and hope that we get a good response, as well as hiring a designer and a professional team to shepherd the design forward.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question to that. When you ask for public feedback, and thank you very much for the response, is there actually a cost attached to doing a survey to get the public feedback? And if so, what is the cost for that?
The costs vary. There is a cost. There's a cost in that we typically have a mix of internal staff that work on it, and there's no direct cost there except for the cost to have those employees on staff. But there's also typically there's consultants involved that help us to organize and do the right thing, because there are professionals that know these communication processes in some ways better than we do. But it does depend on the project. We also depend on we've been using the Engage Cupertino website, which there's the city has engage this website, and I'm sure there's some costs related to that, but we don't pay for that out of the project fund. There are other costs like mailers and things like that, depending on the outreach methods that we choose. So I couldn't speak to specifics, but it does take time and money to do that process, yes.
Is there actually a way in which there could be volunteers that are professionals that can potentially help? I was, perhaps my knowledge is not accurate, but somebody told me that sometimes a survey can take as much as $80,000 to complete. Is there a way in which there could be volunteers, professional volunteers, who know how to do survey writing that can help cover volunteer their time and give you the survey or provide that feedback or service to the city at cost or at no cost?
There probably are ways that could happen. I think we'd have to be organized for that to be in place so that it was a competent group of people that would be able to mobilize and engage the public effectively.
Okay.
Yeah, the difficulty would be organizing that on a project-to-project basis. We have done different levels of contracting, you could say, for the different projects. And so, for example, for the Blackberry Farms golf course feasibility study, public outreach that we're doing, we've engaged an outside consultant to coach the staff on that, and we're mostly doing that as an in-house measure. Right.
And are commissioners able to help and support as well if they have the capacity and the competence?
I believe so. I'm not sure how that would happen, but I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Assistant Director Mosley, you have something else to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add quickly. Oftentimes, these surveys and a lot of this public outreach is included with whatever contract we have for the professional service, for the professional consultant who's putting together the specific plan. We typically will build those types of outreach into the contract. And that is kind of what has happened with the Lawrence MIDI plan. There were some surveys that were put out by our consultants and a lot of other outreach efforts that have been put out by them. So we typically include that with the master planning process.
So do you have an idea what that survey cost ended up being for the MIDI project?
I don't know exactly what it was. It was built into the contract for the specific plan preparation, and that contract for the Lawrence MIDI specific plan for the entire specific plan preparation was around $300,000, if I recall, $250,000 to $300,000. But that includes the preparation of the plan and the public outreach.
Okay, so is my information incorrect that it could be as much as $80,000 for a survey?
I don't recall that the surveys being that expensive. They're typically, an electronic survey that's done online, and we'll typically send mailers to folks so that they can have their input. My understanding that a citywide mailer costs somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000. And so after that, it's really just the preparation of the survey, and which, if it's an online survey, is probably not overly expensive. Maybe a few $1,000s to prepare it. I'm not exactly sure, but $80,000 seems
excessive, right?
Excessive, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I have one more follow-up question that I forgot to ask earlier. Now, with every contract, at least that I have handled before, the contractor, personally, when I've handled it, the contractor gives me one number, and then by the end of the project, it is always a plus. It's never a minus. So what do we expect will be the plus top of the 1.3? Has that information been provided? I mean, not having dealt with the city contracts, I don't know if that's built into everything or not. So I'm asking the question.
It's not allowed.
We typically build a contingency into the 1.3. Ayano, do you recall what the contingency is for this project?
I believe we asked for 10%.
So we're building in
Like
100.
Yeah, I think of 1.5 and so I think.
Yeah, so I think about $150,000 contingency to take care of some of those unforeseens. Because yeah, you're right. It typically goes up. With that stated, staff trying to think outside of the box. We do have the Westport project right across the road. They're planning on doing excavation for that project, and we've been coordinating with the developer to see what we can do to import soil from that property, take it right across the street and use it here. And we're hoping that there may be a cost savings there. So, you know, this may be the first project in history where it's, you know, less than 1.3. I highly doubt it, but we are doing what we can to try and save the city's money.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I would love to see a project that goes minus. It's always plus. But one more follow-up question. Sorry, I'm new to how city contracts are done, so a lot of questions here. Every contractor is supposed to do within the 1.3 or 1.5 or whatever we built in, and they're going to give us like 6 trees, two ponds, whatever. At the end of the day, they will take their 1.5 regardless, and they might give us 1 tree instead of 6 trees because costs went up because of COVID, somebody happened, supply issue, this, that, and the third thing. What do we have built into the contract that says, you don't deliver this, you don't get paid this much, or if you delay the project, you don't get paid, or do contracts for city not involve such terms?
Oh no, we've got all kinds of stuff in there, and our city attorney Chris Jensen reviews all of these contracts before we take them to council. We've got a lot of stopgaps in there and safety measures. One of the biggest ones being we provide plans for the bid process. The contractor reviews those plans, and what's on the plans is what they have to build. And we typically have progress payments. We don't pay them. We don't pay them 1.3 million up front.
Of course.
We pay them progress as it goes along.
Yeah.
And that's how we make sure that we're not being taken advantage of.
Okay, so there are penalties that they would, if they don't deliver, they either don't get paid or they will have to pay some kind of penalty if they don't deliver.
That's correct. They won't get paid, and if they don't deliver it on time, there are the potentials for penalties at the end of the projects for the amount of time they go beyond the contract amount, the contracted allotted time.
Okay. I think I've exhausted all my questions for tonight, unless somebody else has thought of something else. If not, and it doesn't look like any hands are being raised, so thank you very much, Ayano, Susan, and Chad, for putting up with all of our questions. And with that, we can move on to the next topic, I guess. Jessica?
Thank you.
So next we'll have the Jollyman Park All-Inclusive Playground, and I'd like to invite up Evelyn Morin, our Public Works Project Manager.
Hi, good evening, commissioners and members of the public. We have Melissa Erickson and Melissa Butler from MIG. They are the design consultant. There we go. Next slide, please. So this is tonight's agenda, starting with introductions to the project team. Like I mentioned before, we have Melissa Erickson and Melissa Butler and myself. We have been working on the playground, the all-inclusive playground. Then we will go through the overview and site analysis of Jollyman Park, followed by what we heard from the community. Then we will discuss the playground design concepts, and lastly, open it up to questions and comments. Next slide, please. So this is the project timeline, and it's as follows. In 2018, Cupertino authorized the feasibility study for an all-inclusive playground. In 2019, Santa Clara County was awarded Cupertino the AIPG grant. In 2022, the design and fundraising phases were initiated. Next year, we anticipate the completion of the final design construction documents, followed by construction. Lastly, the grant reopening of the new playground will be in 2024. With that, I hand it over to Melissa from MIG. She will take over from here.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. Appreciate that. It is nice to see everyone and give you a chance to kind of get an overview of what we're about to put out for the public with some events that we have coming up. I am not going to really talk about MIG, but I'm certainly happy to address questions. But I did want to at least point out that we've been working on all-inclusive playgrounds for 40 years, basically from our very beginning. We've literally written the book and multiple books on the topic. It's something near and dear to us. And we are also kind of unique as a design firm in that we also have an active accessibility practice, which gives us a very robust process in looking at the type of playground that we are developing here at Jollyman. So without further ado, let's just make sure that we're talking about the same place and get everyone on the same page. So we're talking about Jollyman and kind of looking at its general context within the city of Cupertino and kind of the range of neighborhoods that are within immediate proximity to the location of where this playground is going to be located. As it currently is set, I'm sure you're all quite aware, fairly large play areas, open fields, multi-purpose, existing play areas, softball fields, existing an off-leash dog area, parking, and then 2 separate play areas that are currently in place. And we are specifically going to be looking at area 2, which we'll go into a little deeper detail, but this gives you some basic context as far as the immediate neighborhood and the existing components. I'm sure most of you are quite aware. It is this core area around play area 2, the area that is currently the 5 to 12-year-old play area that we are focused on and what the inclusive grant is really kind of charged with developing. And so this area and the aerial snapshot is the key area that we're looking at. We are not looking at the other play areas or the rest of the park, but really just this particular area in order to focus the play efforts there. There are a couple of high-level project goals we just wanted to make sure that are stated as far as this process. This is all ages, all abilities from the get-go. It's all about looking at cooperation, collaboration, the chance to play together, but it is looking across the range of abilities, including the autism spectrum, hearing, mobility, sensory, neurodivergent components, but really looking at that whole range, whether they're children, the caregivers, the people that are with them, et cetera. This is for everyone, and that is really kind of key in how we're developing everything moving forward. Within the packet, we included some additional detail about community surveys that have been in process. In early February, we started out with giving the city an inclusive primer, talking about how we approach inclusive play and some of those key fundamentals to make sure that we're all on the same page and speaking the same language. We had an online survey that was available for the public, which we'll do some high-level summary of momentarily. We had a pop-up event at Jollyman Park on a Saturday in March to get some direct response from folks who happened to be on site. We then had a meeting with collaborators, focusing specifically on individual caretakers, individuals working with programs, working with specially abled populations to get some more focused feedback to kind of ground the process as well. And then we had a pop-up event for Earth Day to get some additional feedback. All of that has been kind of summarized and is our starting point as we look towards specific efforts and moving forward. And I want to kind of take a high-level summary of some of the key takeaways that we had from that process. For that survey, we had 308 respondents. 90% of those were actually residents of Cupertino, and 55% live within a 15-minute walk. So we were successful in getting feedback from folks most impacted by changes and improvements at the park. But I think what's also telling is we had roughly 40% in 2 different categories, either individuals who care for someone who has different abilities, sensory, cognitive, mobility, and or themselves have some limitations, which is really helpful in kind of establishing a baseline of considerations and looking at what they're looking for in addressing play and how that could be manifested in Jollyman itself. Within that, we did ask some very broad level discussions about kind of the look and feel that folks were looking for. And essentially half the respondents were looking for something that was more on the kind of organic or natural look, with a fairly strong second looking at something that was artistic. And then as far as ideas and features, again, nature and exploration being very popular, almost half the folks identified that, but keeping that sensory art color as part of it. And so looking at how to balance those two is kind of our charge. And we asked some questions about specific types of activities folks are most interested in having available. And kind of the three that really kind of jumped to the top is climbing, sliding, and swinging. Not that that excludes anything else, but those were the ones that received the most that we wanted to make sure that we certainly included and then expand upon as we move forward with the design components. So that helped us articulate some of the community's goals based on some of the other comments we received from the collaborators, the surveys, talking with city staff, but really trying to take a look at some of these key points and really trying to take a look at these being foundational to what needs to be included in the improvements. I won't read through all of them, but safety, opportunities for retreat and refuge, a broad range of experiences, including challenge. Risk is still key, no matter your ability, but having a range of opportunities to engage in those activities is really critical. Having imagination opportunities, interaction, collaboration, along with gathering areas were some of those key points that are summarized from what we heard from the community. With that, we took that feedback, looked at the site, some of the different components, and came up with two different alternatives that we will be moving and presenting to the public to get additional feedback on, which I'm going to walk you through. So there are some common themes in both of the alternatives. They both have a kind of a combination of kind of an organic, more naturalistic look and feel. They both have opportunities for nature and exploration. They all have climbing, sliding, and swinging, the three main activities we certainly heard that were strongly desired for this area. They all are inclusive, have cooperative play opportunities, allow for imaginative play, and have sensory art and color, but they're expressed in slightly different ways. They also take a look into kind of a range of other opportunities, and we're going to kind of walk through. So there are two different concepts that we are going to be presenting to the public and which you are getting a preview of tonight. And I'll walk through each one kind of individually, give you an overview, and then kind of we'll do a deeper dive into each one to kind of literally walk you through the play areas to understand what those areas, but this gives you an opportunity to see them side by side before we move forward. I'll give it a slight pause so you can take a look, and then we're going to walk through item one first. So both of these pieces have a main gateway that's near the parking. There is a future restroom that's located closer to the parking, which will be a separate project that we're hoping the city will be able to find funding for. And the existing play area that is to the north, the tot area, will remain in both cases. In both options, the new play area has a perimeter fence, so it is enclosed. This is particularly helpful for those on the autism spectrum who are runners, who need to have a containment, as otherwise they will run across the open fields, and that's certainly a concern. They both have a secondary entrance towards the south where the cul-de-sac ends, so that there's an opportunity for a second entry there. They both have internal gathering areas within the play area. They both have on the U side a slide mountain, which you'll see what that is, swings and retreats. And then the tots have swings and treats as well. So they're kind of addressing in both. In both concepts, we are changing the play area so that there is part of the area that will be tot 5 to 12 and part of it which will be 5 to 12, 2 to 5. So they're both within that fenced area. So essentially we're expanding the tot with some of the improvements that are being provided. So let's talk about option one. You can see the faded out aerial just behind. This is existing parking area that is off to the left. The existing 5 to 2 area is just to the north. This dashed area is the proposed area for a future restroom and bike parking. And this is the main entry, which is close to the parking. There's a central circulation spine. Roughly the left side is the youth area, and which is the 5 to 12, and roughly the right side is addressing the tots. And we're going to do a deep dive kind of into each of those so you can see a little bit more specifically what is occurring. So let's start with this upper area, the northernmost section of the youth area. Here's the main gathering area, a large circulation path that comes in. You can see part of a gathering area that is off to the side. Immediately as you enter, which is just cut off by this, is 2 basket swings. But then you enter into a sliding hill, which has multiple ways for people to engage in sliding, including sensory with rollers and a dignity landing for people to pull off at the end, a more conventional slide, the chance to slide actually literally on the surfacing itself, alternative climbing, a companion so you can slide down with someone. There is a stair access point as well as an accessible route that connects through the rest of the play area and providing a range of kind of scrambles and nets. The images on the right side give you some idea of what those might look like as far as kind of concepts or what the general intent is in those areas. Art would be incorporated in this particular area. We don't know what the shape or form will be yet, but it is thought that it was going to play off the idea of a sun as we look through kind of series of elements and playing off of nature throughout the area. As we move south, this is the area we're nicknaming the foothills, and this is where the swinging is included. We have 2 belt swings, 2 molded bucket seats, so we provide for a range of abilities and those that need additional support. There is a larger spinner that allows for multiple folks to play in collaborative play. It's also accessible, something similar to the image on the lower right. The areas for some retreats for folks that need to be slightly removed from the activity but still want to be seen. They have a chance to get slightly separated so that they can have some quiet space. A variety of seating opportunities are demarcated by these little kind of tan areas with striped benching. Thought that they might be wood toppers on top of seat walls or benches, but providing ample opportunity for that to be included, and a variety of chances with the planting for there to be additional scrambles or shortcuts to address alternative circulation through the area. As we switch to the tot side, and this is the entry, it will be just up here. Here's the double basket swing. The main path comes into a larger picnic area for gathering, whether it's for picnics or for folks that have birthday parties. Then having a tot swing that has 2 bucket seats, a small, more natural area we're kind of calling the woods for terminology that allows for some paths cutting through with the planting areas, multiple little retreats as far as playhouses that potentially might look like the image on the bottom corner, and then having a kind of smaller, more forest hut type of tot play structure to allow for some additional components. Again, providing a range of seating around with shade provided by trees, predominantly a range of rock scrambles throughout, and then bringing in some drums and some other kind of interactive sensory components to allow for some more collaborative play as well. And then as we move to the southern end, this is the area we're calling the creek, where there is a large sand and water play, part of which would be elevated to allow for wheelchair access rolled up to and be able to play within, but providing this area with a nice, very textural, collaborative play that allows for a lot of interaction between folks, ample seating, a small little stage for play, a variety of different log steppers and informal areas. And then at the south end is a slight little entry for a second gateway that would also be fenced that allows for a bioretention swale, which we will require to address, which it can also be included as far as another natural area for folks to engage in. Now, granted, that was a very quick overview. Here it is kind of as it is as a whole. Again, some of the things I want to address is included within this is also hopefully the siting of a future restroom as a separate project, some bike racks, looking at that, There are going to be some sidewalk improvements to the existing sidewalk to address some slope considerations and ensure that we have an accessible path into the play area, both for the new entrance, but along the existing path, and looking at retaining the existing basketball court as it is in place in this particular option, while providing some opportunities for additional gathering areas and pauses at the entry as gathering areas and a larger seating area internally for that effort. So that gives you an overview of option 1 that we'll be moving forward with. And then we're going to walk through option 2. So again, here's the parking area. This slightly pulls back the main entry a little bit further away and into the lawn area, so it pulls that a little bit more separated. This also has a central pathway that kind of connects the 2 different entrances and more clearly separates the youth area from the tot area. On this one, we expand the area to include the basketball court to give us some additional opportunity to interact with those existing redwoods that are on the side and use that as part of the component. And we'll walk through this one just like we did the other one, kind of starting with the upper level. So starting with the tot area, the main entrance is right behind the little legend here. You immediately come into slides, which would have a variety of molded accessible seats as well as belt seats, a low retreat center, again having a slide hill, although it's a slightly different configuration, but again allows multiple ways for people to engage in sliding activities, including again the dignity landings with a sensory slide, a more traditional slide, alternative options, collaborative slide opportunities. This also has a stair and an accessible ramp, just like the other was, but slightly different configurations. And again, allows for scrambles and other alternatives as far as pathways include within this. And again, images are of example ideas are included on the right-hand side as we kind of progress. As we move south through the area, the difference on this particular one is a larger climbing structure, a more kind of intensive net climbing component, which is also accessible from the edge. That takes a larger footprint and requires a little bit more space in addressing that. Here's the end of the slide hill and how that kind of interacts. There will also be another natural retreat area to the side and its connection then to the main entrance. The art in this, there's opportunities for there to be a chalk art plaza area where that folks can use that for components, though that can probably happen in most cases, but we're looking at a dedicated space here for that to potentially occur. Then as we move to the tot area, as you can notice, the swings are directly adjacent and on either side of the path. So the tot area is onto the left. Here we're looking at the belt swings, a larger natural area, again, kind of the forest theater with the idea of having some drums and chimes included in that area for performance. The broader space allows for perhaps some more robust plantings and or grass mazes, opportunities to really kind of advance the planting within that component and addressing a wider range. And then as we move further south to the southern end, instead of sand and water, there's a larger play area that has a smaller mound with an accessible ramp, a larger structured wall to help us address that grade change. Provides another opportunity for something similar to this type of embankment slide on a turf hill with some mounds, some log jam climbing structure of some components, some larger boulders for kind of general climbing, and slightly smaller picnic area as the internal component within that. As we move kind of back out and relook at it, again, there's 2 entrances, one to the north, one to the south. The south location is roughly the same in both, but in this one, it's slightly pulled into the park a little bit more into the lawn area. Again, still looking at bike parking and looking at potential restroom somewhere closer to the parking lot in proximity to the existing play area. Same looking at improvements along the accessible path to ensure that that path provides an accessible path of travel. We lose the basketball court in this one by trying to increase the space and provide some additional alternatives and footprints for those. We do provide an additional picnic area that is outside the play area in addition to those internally. So that gives you a very kind of high level overview of the two. Seeing them next to each other again, so we can take a look at kind of that overview of components of how they kind of work within the space. One pushes slightly further north into the existing open lawn and the existing mound that exists in the space. And option 2 expands slightly more to the east towards the basketball court and encapsulates that into the overall component. In summary, there are a couple different differences I just wanted to make sure that we point out. We wanted to make sure that we had two different concepts for the public to take a look at, even though essentially the themes are very similar, but there are some specific differences that we're really looking forward to hearing from the public as far as what their feedback is on these pieces. So in one, the basketball court remains. There's a larger central gathering area within the play area that allows for picnic and gathering. The entry is closer to parking and to hopefully the restroom, the new restroom that will be added to the site. Option 1 has 2 of the nest or basket swings, which are fairly popular, and they're right at the entry, so they're a clear draw. The mountain that is provided is slightly taller, given what we can accomplish with some of the grades. So that gives some opportunity to kind of stretch the money in some case, because we don't have to work in with retaining walls as significantly or handrails. That allows us to provide a little bit more on the art front for different components. The tot area has sand and water, which is not included in option 2. And then instead of a large climbing area, it's more of a mobile, rotating, climbing, collaborative globe spinner in concept 1. In concept 2, the basketball court is removed. It's a half court, and so we're taking over that space. The gathering area is shifted, so it's a little bit more internal to the park. The nest swing, there's only one, and it's separate from the other areas. The overall mountain is slightly lower in elevation to address some of that. And as we look at this, some of the retaining walls are required to make the grade change, does have some shifts as far as what we're able to provide as components. It does provide a larger climber, which was also something that folks were looking at. So between the two, we feel like we've covered quite the range of components that the community's identified as far as needs, different opportunities, some similarities, and really looking forward to getting feedback as far as kind of where those priorities are between them and how they want to address that. Our next steps, and then I'll stop so that we can go through and see what questions you have as far as feedback. As I said, these are the two concepts that we're moving forward with. We have a public survey that we'll be going out in just under 2 weeks' time. We have a pop-up event, or 2 pop-up events, pardon me, that are coming up, one at the library and one at the park itself again, coming up in the next couple weekends to take a look at. And then we have a virtual community meeting. And so all of these are going to be formats for us to gain additional feedback as far as how these two opportunities and concepts pan out, what folks are really interested in, what they'd love to see kind of morph together as we come with a consolidated opportunity. And with that, I will temporarily pause. I'm sure we'll have to pull these back up so that we can pull them up for a discussion. I think one of the main things we were hoping today is, as I said, we have a community survey that is about to go live. I think we're scheduled to go live on the 14th, if I'm going to correct me if I'm remembering the date, Evelyn. But to that end, okay, thank you. One of the things that would be helpful for us as we're kind of crafting that is if there is specific feedback that you would like to get from the public that we can bring back to this entity as far as thoughts, concerns, if there's anything in specific that you want to make sure that we have answered and or ask of the community, that would be great. We also hope that you will continue to pass on to all of your networks the survey links as it comes available and notice of those events so we continue to get additional feedback because we are very excited to see where this goes and kind of see what comes of the next version based on community feedback. And with that, I will pass it back and happy to answer questions.
Awesome. That was a very, very good, very detailed presentation. Thank you very much for all your work. There's obviously a hand up, so clearly there are questions. Commissioner Swamy, and then followed by Commissioner Kumarappan. Take it away.
Oh, you're muted.
Commissioner
Thank
Swamy,
you.
you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Thank you very much for a very detailed presentation. Really, really edifying. I appreciate that. So I heard initially you said that the initial option 1 is what you're going with. Did I misunderstand? And then later on I heard that you're putting a survey out and getting people's views. So I'm a little bit confused about the decision-making stage.
Sure. No, we are presenting both concepts to the public. It's just that based on the feedback we get from the online survey, the 2 pop-up events, and the community workshop, we'll then be taking all that feedback plus whatever feedback you give us, and then coming up with a preferred concept that's going to move forward for construction and looking at costing. So both of these are viable and are going to be going out to the public to get feedback.
Okay. And what does the community workshop entail?
It's going to be a virtual workshop. So we'll be walking them through a similar presentation as we just did with you, maybe with a slightly different information or more detail on some of the play components. And we'll be asking for some additional feedback as far as what they're looking for, priorities to a certain extent, areas that they particularly really enjoy. Ideally, just take that so we can have some additional feedback that we can then use in. It's not necessarily going to be 1 or 2 that moves forward, but it's probably going to be some new piece that takes aspects of each of those and becomes the design that moves forward.
Yeah, and who will be the participants for these that you will be inviting?
It will be open to all of Cupertino. It's a totally open public, and hopefully a lot of folks will be coming in. The survey will be advertised through the city and addressed there. And again, hoping that we just get a lot of feedback. As I said, with the last online survey, we had about 308 respondents and 90% were Cupertino residents. We're hoping we get something similar and hopefully more, because it's always easier when they actually have something specific to look at versus kind of a more general, what do you want? So having 2 options and kind of that story of what's in there so that they can kind of say, oh, I really like this and I really like this. Could you move those, maybe those could be combined, that type of feedback.
And my last question before I hand it over is, what was the cost of the survey?
Oh, I don't know if I know exactly, but I think it was probably something like about 5,000, like a spitball guess on cost. The main cost usually on surveys is getting the materials and the graphics for it. And then it's really doing the analysis on the back end and tabulating it, especially if you have open-ended questions, and then trying to kind of pull that together. But that's kind of a rough guess. I'd have to probably do a closer take, but we can often do it for that depending on the materials that we provide.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know if I should go ahead and call on you, Commissioner Kumarappan.
Yeah, no, I can. I'm waiting for the vice chair, but it's okay. I can jump on now. Right, vice chair?
Okay, there we go. I lost my internet connection. So I missed the last part of...
No, I think we were wondering, should I jump in or not? So I think...
Please go ahead. And for future reference, if I've gotten so quiet and I'm staring somewhere else, it's because I'm looking at my internet connection. So.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Excellent. So absolutely very kind of mind-blowing, the designs and stuff. Thank you, Melissa, both the Melissas here, because I was trying to write who are those 2 Melissa. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I have many questions. Maybe I will try to summarize on few, and then maybe it might end up into the discussion side of it. Number 1, do you plan to put any of those prototypes or anything which you might have already had? I know you said that you have 40 years of experience. I'm sure that you may have some prototype, because sometimes it's for us, I'm just trying to visualize the art and how it is. Since I haven't seen one, so maybe I should go ahead and visit the other places in Sunnyvale and other Mountain View and other places you have. But is there a possibility that you plan to have any prototype in the community events and stuff, or those two events on 18th and 25th? Is there any possibility?
We wouldn't have any prototypes of equipment there. What we will have is at the pop-up events, we'll have 2 printouts, one of each of the plans so we can talk through folks kind of what's included. It's really more discussion. And we're still kind of pulling together, but the pop-ups are really going to be more another chance for people to actually kind of see the plans larger and get some direct feedback and actually engage in conversation. That's really kind of the point for the pop-ups.
I see. Okay. So next question is that you talked about the basketball court being removed on the option 2. But when I look into it, I'm sure that's like we are depriving the benefits of one set of people who actually do it. So by default, looks like people will not even go there, the option 2, because option 2, you are compromising something which is also actively used for the benefit of something else. So this is kind of a counter, like this kind of forces us to move into the option 1. Is there a reason why we picked up on that option without even removal? Can't there be in a second option?
Oh, sure. And I can talk about the basketball court, and I will, or unless Susan, you want to take first dibs.
I can just mention, thank you, that if the basketball court is moved, we definitely would have to find another location for that use at the park, because it is actually well used. So we'd have to address that. Okay. So does that mean there will be an additional cost? Public should know that if there is an option 2 has been, if they choose it, absolutely, there will be an additional cost be incurred to relocate that basketball court to somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can make that more clear in the points too.
Yeah, I think that would be, because otherwise, by default, they will say no. I just want to make sure that we educate them with more information.
I think we should point out that option 2, where the basketball area is located, that doesn't have any water components. So that could be something that could be incorporated into concept 1 if the public decides that water concepts are not something that they're interested in.
Yeah, definitely. So the other questions I have is second, in the option 2, I think you showed some sample as a stairway, but when I just looked at it, it's all stone or concrete. I think it's a kind of a stone stairway, right? I see it in the picture. But is that, for looking at it, it seems to be very dangerous for the kid, even the kid in the photo coming around, if it is really a hard rock or something. Is that, if they choose to do it, would that be the kind of a model of the staircase?
Oh, so if you were talking about the staircase, or were you talking about the rock climbing components?
No, not the mountain one. I think in one of those in the slides, there's a kid. I don't know if you could put it. Let me try to see whether
I can. Let me pull up the image for you, and that'll make it easier.
Yeah.
I believe it is the youth area of the second one. So
yeah,
it's the
second youth area.
Second slide of the youth area.
Page 27.
Yeah, number 2 on the second. Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Let me get back to the blow up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go back.
Sorry. Now my internet's having a little delay. So there we go. So you're referring to.
If you could go up, go up further, one more slide, I think possibly or 2. One more.
One more, maybe.
Yeah, maybe one more. No, further.
For this?
Yeah. So I know the sample.
There we go.
I was just looking at it.
Okay.
Is it already being implemented in some park? That's what.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we actually do this fairly often, and that's kind of what this little section is. It's a little boulder scramble instead of stairs. We have stairs on the side with handrails. We do this often. I think we've actually, I can't say I've done those for 40 years, but I think we've done them for at least 35. But it's really kind of a great flexible space because it's a great texture. It allows for people to kind of lay, lounge, You can ambulate using your knees and kind of, do a butt transfer up. So it provides a range of opportunities besides just general hangout. But that's why we provide multiple options. So if people don't want to do that, they can also do the kind of the rope grab assist. They can, potentially walk up the artificial turf surfacing. They could choose to take the stairs. They could choose to take the ramp. So it gives them multiple options.
I see. Okay. Yeah. In the front look itself, it looks like dangerous for the kiddie one. So that's why I asked the question. So the other one is when you talked about mountain slide and also normal slides. I saw in the picture. So is it when you have a mountain slides, then you will not have the normal slides, or do you allow those?
So we like to give things names. And so we kind of call this whole area Slide Mountain because
Slide mountain. Okay, sorry.
This is where all the slides are. So this is a common shared area at the top, and you can choose which one you want to take to get down.
Oh, I see. That's a common place from which there are different directions on it.
Correct.
I see. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Of course.
And the other one is on the restrooms, you talked about it. I know it's on the outside in both one for accessibility side, but that's the common restroom, which is for anyone on the park, not just for the people in the one, right?
Yeah, and correct. And let me just talk about the restroom briefly. The existing restroom, which is kind of on the opposite side of the park to the northwest corner, that will remain. And there are some improvements there that are going to be required. However, we have kind of talked about the fact that having a restroom that is closer to the play areas in general is advantageous. Little kids don't have much warning system. But the thought is it would be another public restroom. That doesn't fall within the purview of this budget, but it's something that the city is looking at, whether there might be some additional funds to look at. It would be probably separate, but we want to make sure that we're thinking about it. And Susan, I will pass off to you.
Thank you. It is a feature that would serve this playground immensely well. It would serve the community that comes to this playground very well. It isn't in the budget right now, so we have actually gone and included in our CIP proposal for fiscal year 22-23 as a new project. We'd probably fold it into the work that we're doing on this playground, but we needed to get separate funding. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah, because since we are putting it all of them, I was wondering if it is public consumption as well, and then it's really difficult.
Yeah. Anybody could use it. It would definitely be made for all abilities.
Got it. Thank you. And the last one is that in the survey of the 308, maybe two questions. The survey on the 308 respondents with 90%, there are 40 and 39. I just wanted to go to the slide. Give me a second. I want to go to that too. So the 40% is care for someone who has a physical, sensory, and one. That is 40% of the 308, right?
Yeah, correct.
And 39% personally experience physical, sensory on it. So it's like predominantly the responses are coming from the people who will be using it.
Right. And that was something we were very excited about. That is often not the case, but to have such a high number of respondents who either themselves are experiencing that or have, or someone they take care of does, I think further grounds the findings as far as really hitting the audience that we're specifically trying to make sure feel welcome.
Okay. The question is, again, hopefully the survey will also attract other kids who even want to play with these kids and stuff. So it looks like maybe I read it, it's great response, but I'm not sure whether the outreach has reached those people, or they may thought that, oh, it's not for me. It's all inclusive playground, it's not for me, or kind of. So that's the question I want to understand. Is there a question or completely geared towards only getting those feedback?
No, because the whole point is we don't necessarily want anyone to have to self-identify as having certain abilities or not. This is for anyone, and we don't want you to feel separate or not equal. And so I think to that end, everyone should feel something interesting, which is why we want to make sure there is art to the extent that we can, that there is nature, opportunities to collaborate, to have things that are different, to have surprises, to have those details, so that no matter where you are on any of those, the abilities, at some point we will all have probably some limitation, whether it's temporary or not. So yeah, to that end, it is for everyone. So no, we're looking forward to hearing from everyone.
Excellent, thank you. And the last question for now is, you said in the top area, the water and the sand play, it is in the option 1, but not
Correct.
in option 2.
Correct.
Okay, so no water play or any of those play. It's just
correct.
Water in one.
Yeah, yeah. We wanted to make sure that there were differences, and so it'll be interesting to see what people say. We're huge proponents of sand and water play. It is a great return as far as time and the length of time people stay in a park when there is that. But it might be that that's not what the folks want to have. So we wanted to make sure that that was included, and then kind of see what people respond.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's all for now. So I'll come back in the discussion side. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Awesome. Commissioner Swamy, did you have another question? Your hand is raised.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Baker. I had a few follow-up questions to piggyback on what Commissioner Kumarapan was saying. I understand that you don't have a prototype. I saw some pictures. Are those pictures indicative of some of the structures that are going to be there?
Yes.
Right? Okay. So that is what you're referring to as something. Okay. Second part is, I understand that you have the water structure in option 1, but not in option 2. But in option 2, you are eliminating the basketball court, and what I heard is that it will be repositioned somewhere else and you'll find another location. So if people choose option 2, do you already have a location in mind where you'd move the basketball court? And B, what is the cost implication of that?
Susan, I'll let you take it.
Those are very good questions. We don't have the answers at this point.
Yeah.
I think it behooves us to be prepared, but the design concepts have been presented in a way to engender responses about the playground itself. And if the public wishes to take over that area for this playground, we will have to balance that with the reality of the costs and implications of what do we do, how do we provide the basketball features at another location in this park. Because we also then have the dog off leash area, which is immensely popular, and we don't want to compromise the field uses. So all those things have to be taken into account. Yeah, it's a big deal. So I appreciate you bringing that up, but we wanted to put it out there to make sure that people had an ability to say yes or no to that kind of expansion.
Right. And for people to be able to say yes or no, they need to be able to see the total cost. So I think what needs to happen in option 2 is add in the cost for the relocation of the basketball court itself, so people can meaningfully make a choice between A and B, keeping the cost in mind. And B, second question I have is, people may like parts of your option 2 and may like parts of option 1. So is it that they only get a chance to say the gestalt of 1 or the gestalt of 2? For example, they might like a lot of the elements of 2, or they may like many of the elements of 1 but not want the water structure. Is there in your survey options that you offer so you can mix and match and people then eventually can come up with a third option altogether?
Yes. Yeah, we fully expect that. I mean, we're still actually writing the survey, so this is a helpful question, so we can think about how best to kind of get that response. Because we fully expect that people might have a preference for one of them, but want something that's in the other. And so we're going to craft that so we can kind of better understand kind of what those trade-offs are, and even some of the individual components, and are ranking their top items that they'd like to see included, so that we can take that. And then of course we'll have to take a look at that budget impact and or the space requirements. But we fully expect that neither one nor two will likely move forward without some change. And it might be some combination of them. It might be closer to one or the other. We just don't know. But we're looking forward to having people let us know kind of where they land on that.
Okay, thank you. I think that would be the best way to write the survey, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kumarapan, do you have another question?
Sorry,
No, I think
maybe I'll just finish that with that question. So this is kind of what Commissioner Seema touched on it. The survey, I know it's happening on 18th and 25th, not the survey. The survey is starting from June to July, and then you have in between 2 events.
Yep.
And then when you plan to go back, feedback to the community that, hey, this is what we heard, and this is what we have come up with it. What is the timeline that you will respond back to them and say, hey, this is what we plan to do? I don't think there are any more survey, but just want to know what the timeline we are talking about.
Evelyn, did you want to go?
Yes. So once we complete the 3 community events, we'll take all of the information that the public has provided, including your feedback, and MIG will provide a third concept, and then we will be going to the public, updating commissioners and the public in September.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I have one more question. They've asked all the questions I had in mind, but I have one more question. So, or rather a suggestion, and that is that instead of saying in the 2, you're going to say remove the basketball court, but is it possible to say maybe move the basketball court? Or somehow suggest to the public that there is the option that if we go with the 2 as it is, we will remove it. However, do you want us to keep the basketball court? Because I suspect the answer will be yes, we want the basketball court moved. Now, the question then becomes, okay, how much money do we have and all of that good stuff, which we can, discuss later, but I would imagine that we need to mention that there's a possibility for it to be moved, of course, at a cost.
Yeah, we'll work with the city to make sure that we provide that in the comparison between the 2, so it's a little bit clearer.
Yeah, because I suspect if it's a well-used basketball court, even if it's half a court, people would still want to go back and use that. Now, question is, when we split up, when you give them the 2 options, it just then becomes, okay, we're going to lose the basketball court is not the concept we're trying to get at. The other thing is when you have the survey, can you include any locations of the existing all-inclusive playgrounds in the local Bay areas so that people can go and see how it look and feel, because you're obviously not providing a paper model of any kind or a paper mache model for that matter. So it's easier to see it, if somebody's interested. Nobody has to, but if you provide that information, it might be useful to people in general.
I could, but I would say that I'm hesitant to do that because it's not going to be the same. And I think so much about what this is going to be is about the setting, the context, the overall components, the surprise. And I would say that there isn't anything out there that would be what Jollyman's going to be like.
Okay.
There could be specific equipment, but it's also not about equipment, it's about experience. So I'd maybe say like I'm inclined not to.
Okay. All right. Looks like Commissioner Swamy has another question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hear why you're hesitant to doing that, Melissa, but and I think it would be really helpful though to include, if not the prototype, I can understand can be expensive for you to put together, but how about putting together pictures of the equipment type or what it might entail and how that is different and what some of the benefits can, because it's all in your mind and in the minds of the designers, but we are obviously people cannot open your brain to see what's in it. They might want some way to be able to crystallize it. What is it that they're approving beyond the concept? Because I still am not entirely clear after this long discussion. What am I getting in A that is so much dramatically different from B, other than the fact that I'm losing a basketball court in option B and there's some water structure in A. So it's not entirely clear in my mind, which is why I think Vice Chair Begur is also trying to say, hey, is there any other park that we can take a look at to maybe get a better sense of it? Picture speaks 1,000 words, right? So I'm not saying you don't have it in your head and it's not great, it is, but it's just that we don't seem to be able to connect to that as well and as concretely as we'd like to.
Might I add, there might be a way for me to log onto our Engage Cupertino website, and I can pinpoint the locations in an interactive map for locations within the South Bay. So if you are interested in looking at other all-inclusive play areas, I can do that.
Yeah, and in the survey, just put a line there that says, potential, go to Engage Cupertino to see more information on all-inclusive playgrounds.
Right.
That way people know where to go.
Right. And last but not the least, one question only because of my ignorance. I'm going to bring an analogy to play and ask your feedback if it is at all possible. For example, if somebody is going to design our kitchen, they just create this 3D model for us, right? I'm not saying create a prototype for us, but is there a kind of a 3D model, kind of a picture that you could present that people could go to and take a look at?
We will be doing that when we come with the final version after this round. So this is kind of the first shot of putting ideas into a plan in space and components. As we come back to you after we've kind of heard this feedback, there will be some additional, like a 3D rendering that will be part of it to help kind of better envision what that space is going to be like. And I am sorry, when I heard you say prototype, I immediately thought of like a mock-up of actually equipment versus actually thinking about so I misunderstood what you meant by prototype. You meant just a virtual model. So we won't be doing a full model of this. That wasn't part of what was kind of included in the budget, but we will have some additional renderings, and we can certainly provide some additional imagery about some of the equipment to help make that kind of understanding piece. I will say one of the tricky parts is that equipment is not what this is really about. It's really about the experience and that kind of immersive component. So I will say that there's a range of inclusive play areas out there. They offer a broad range. This is going to be immersive. So, but I understand where you're getting at, and we'll look at getting at least a little bit more worked within that.
Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, Susan, you have some comment?
Thank you. If I can just add that when we've done the pop-up events to date, we've had boards that have illustrations, and for the upcoming pop-up events, we will have boards that show some of the images of similar equipment that's being proposed, just like what's been in the presentation. And to Melissa's point, it helps so much to have the person to walk you through what these are, because the MIG team has such great experience with doing these types of parks, playgrounds in other areas. So they bring that to life. And so that's what we're looking forward to in terms of the pop-ups, the goals of the pop-up, as well as the other community events, to have that engagement in that level.
So this was just the question answer part. We still have the discussion. So unless you specifically have a question, Commissioner Swamy, let me just take it to the
one very final question. Thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
It's the important one about the basketball court. Will people have the option of saying retain the basketball court and reduce the space for the inclusive playground? Is that another option that we are providing, or is it only that we choose 1, 2, and that's it?
We'll make sure we provide some clarification. Again, we're going to be looking at probably not moving forward with either one, but some version of those together. But we will make sure that we provide some way for folks to provide us feedback specifically about that.
Thank you.
So we do have one attendee. So if she hasn't raised her hand, but if there's no one else, I'd actually like to turn the meeting back to our chair, Mina Zhu, who's joined us just now. Jessica, can you make her the co-host, or how does it work?
I will do that right now.
Okay, and then we can get into the actual discussion.
And just so you know, Chair, we do now have a hand raised from the public.
Oh.
Yeah. So may I get an update? So the current stage is public comments on agenda item regarding the Jollyman Park all-inclusive playground.
Yes,
correct.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
so,
I can go ahead and allow
Sure.
Carol to speak.
Hi, everyone. And Mina, nice to meet you. Just so you know, I'm speaking in full transparency also as the Fine Arts member of the Fine Arts Commission. First of all, I wanted to say I applaud how holistic Plan 2 is and what you guys are presenting. I think word of warning is that when you guys are soliciting feedback from the community, that when you guys are doing it is going to be critical, meaning if you ask at a 9 a.m. weekday versus a Saturday, morning or afternoon, you're going to get different audiences who are going to be oriented around different things, who are going to be drawn to different aspects. So that's just one piece of personal advice. But I was just wondering, in terms of a lot of the visuals that you had shared, Melissa, are things that, I think anybody who frequents playgrounds have seen quite commonly. I was more curious about how we were going to kind of up-level it in terms of, not just the play equipment as equipment per se, but play equipment / art, play equipment / auditory kind of engagement. And what level do you, or does the art aspect of this playground need to kind of sync up with, or how can the Fine Arts Commission support and drive that so that it becomes the leading edge playground for not just Cupertino, but in the area?
I think that is going to be an ongoing conversation to see what else you can provide to help do that. We have a lot of ideas, but we have to hear from the community. And so I think trying to take a look at how that gets manifested and the different ways it's articulated will kind of come out of this process. But we would love to, if you've got some additional funding that could help us kind of push the art piece, that would be lovely. But certainly I think it's the power in details. And sometimes it's the little things that really can make that difference to kind of just keep advancing and provide those additional levels so that there's something new you find every time you come, which is the other thing we want to try and take a look at. But yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if you remember me, but I was clearly a very passionate parent about this. And
I do.
And that's why I think, there's a lot of stuff that people may not know of. Maybe their children are much older, but I think in terms of being able to kind of show the parents who are knowledgeable about this, what are we providing to them that is really unparalleled, next level in terms of not just a bike rack, but a bike rack that is a sculpture, for example, or a handrail that's a snake, right? That, just all this kind of like next level. I understand budget, but in terms of, what other ways, we can show support or help push that to the next bar. No,
we'll work on seeing if we can work in a few questions to that end. So thank you, Carol.
Hey, I turn it back to Mina. Take it from here.
So now we start the comments on commissioner side. And thank you, Carol, for your inputs. Yeah, we do need community support to complete this project. And thank you. Okay, and I see Commissioner Kumarapan has something to say.
Thank you, Chair. So it is, I think, related to the topic, the last one, which is about the prototype or 3D model or whatever. I think one, I won't say concern, but I think a challenge for anyone is even just to seeing a picture of it and trying to visualize it. So is it, I'm sure that since based on your experience, you might have done just those structures. For example, you talked about the slide mountain. how does it look like? Just alone, it need not be put in a prototype and say this is how it is exactly now. But at least sometime it will be easy for people to come and take a look at it, even in a table. If I just walk around, and then if I see that one, okay, this is what we call slide motor. Oh, you see it, but this is how it looks. I'm sure that the manufacturers, based on all your experience, they might have given you prototypes or some samples or whatever the mini model, I would say. It'll be good to have at least those things, because we don't have any slide mounts at all, unless otherwise, maybe in some place we could, but we don't. So people will be good for people to say, oh, that's nice. And also the one with the steel one, I think, I'm not sure what you call that as. It's in a cone shape. I'm not sure, what is that one, Melissa? Where people can play music or...
Oh, for the drums or
yeah.
the chimes?
Yeah, chimes. So, but is that like a too hot? Like I'm just looking at it when I'm a little bit on the safety side on the little kids. Will it get hot in the summer? And so people can touch it. I'm just trying to find out what kind of...
It will be if it's not properly sited. So where it's located, to make sure that there is shade to address that, is going to be really critical. Just like the slide elements and its orientation, all of those things are going to be, a key part of the design to help address the fact that it gets very hot in Cupertino. So.
Okay, and a couple of other points just to highlight. It's a school just got over for everyone. It's a summer break. I think we are doing the survey at this time. I'm sure that many people will have their own plans. I'm not sure, even on weekends, as one of our community member, Carol, pointed out. Definitely not on the weekdays, but even on the weekends, I'm not sure how much crowd we are going to get it. So do you have any threshold to set that, hey, we need to get so much of it, right? For example, you got a 308? 308, you got it in the first one. But this one is much more important. Do you have any threshold that you want to get a minimum, otherwise you will push out by another survey or another thing little later, or extend the survey, or how do you plan?
Officially, we don't have a number in mind, but I think if the turnout is really low, that we would have a discussion with Evelyn and team. However, that said, we do have some specific timeframes associated with the grant funding, which is another thing that we're up against. And Evelyn, I'm assuming that's what you were going to speak to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So go ahead. I know that it was kind of given a grace period. And so that may be leading to, is there any timeline we are running against?
Yes. So Santa Clara County was gracious enough to allow an extension, but in discussions with them signing the amendment to the agreement, they are not willing to extend the deadline. So we have to have this project completed by June of 2024. And that means including reimbursement submittals ahead of time. So that's really making our schedule pretty tight to meet that deadline.
Okay. Yeah, because the timing, as well as not having enough visual would impact that's my opinion, based on working with all the community members for so many years. Definitely here, a lot of people are visual oriented and they want to see it and do it, and then the timing. So that is kind of working against this fantastic
correct
kind of one. So that's what I'm a little bit concerned about it. I just want to put that on the table.
If we get to a point where we're not able to submit reimbursement, that money will just be released back to Santa Clara County. The grant is $1.4 million with the city match. So we have to produce a $3.6 million project in order to meet the grant requirements. So if things come up and we're not able to produce that, whatever funds that we don't expend will be reimbursed, will be given back to the county. So the rest will have to come from city funds.
Yeah, no, definitely we don't want to go to that stage at all. We don't want to even think about it. That's okay. So that means, looks like we need to amp up our advertising or outreach to the public and to talk about it, saying that this is a must-have to be done on this, and then their input is really, really important. So we need to amp up it. Okay, thank you for now. So that's all, Chair, again.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Begor have something to
Okay, so as we were talking about specific dates and grants and all that, my questions were exactly in that realm. So I'm looking at 2022 design and fundraising initiated. Was there a specific date? Do we have any specifics on that? I guess this is a question for Evelyn.
Specifics for the design or the fundraising?
Either. I mean,
so we started
both actually.
Yeah. So for design, we started January of this year, and we'll continue on to next year in June. That's when our final construction documents will be complete. Bidding support, we're going to be putting this out to bid during the summertime with anticipation of contract award and things like that in construction during the summertime into the following year. For fundraising, we started fundraising November of last year, but we've had some hiccups. We are working through the campaign plan right now, and we are also working with IT on having an online payment portal that will go through. We can fundraise from now until construction, the start of construction, but typically the public is more prone to donate before construction starts, because during construction time, well, you already have the funds. So we'll continue up until next year.
Sure. Okay, so I think you mentioned some numbers. 1.4 million, was that what the grant was? And we're still looking for the remaining 1 point whatever. My math is not working, but 1.6, yeah, something like that.
So we have a grant for 1.4. Our match is 1.6, and the city has contributed to date 1.2 million. So in our CIP budget, we have 3.6 million, but we have a fundraising goal of $1 million.
Okay. $1 million fundraising goal. So now, if let's just say magically we get this 1 million, so we'll have a total budget of 4.6 million. Now, at the start of construction, is Santa Clara Valley, Santa Clara County, going to give us the 1.4 and just say, okay, move on with life, or do we bill them?
So most of the grant is towards the construction of the play equipment. So we would submit an invoice and with documentation, invoicing, and things like that the city has paid up front ahead of the grant, and then we would submit for reimbursement with documentation. Then the Santa Clara County will come back and provide a check to the city to deposit into our fund.
Okay, so I guess then the question goes now to Melissa. And Melissa, from your perspective, assuming we do a plan 1, what do you expect will be the cost of building that play structure?
We are right now thinking both can be done for the budget that the city has, which is the 3.6, give or take a little less. I will say that construction right now is incredibly difficult, and until you actually get bids, you don't know. And so we're trying to build in a bit of a cushion within there. I think specific materials, the amount of custom work, and to Carol's point, art, that's anything that's custom kind of becomes a scheduling consideration, but we want to make sure that is clearly addressed and included. But right now, we are kind of designing conceptually with both those budgets. As we move forward, we'll be looking more specifically at cost estimating to see how that reality is really coming in, actually doing takeoffs and that type of thing. And we'll likely have to make some, tweaks or adjustments based on that, working with the city.
Okay. So now typically when you're estimating any project, you have some cushion built in. What is the cushion that you have built in here?
At this point, we haven't fully costed it out. So we're kind of doing general, like rough square footages, very gross level of costs. We will be moving forward each time we're advancing with more detailed cost estimating, and that will continue affecting kind of the refinements.
Okay, so let me ask you a question in another way. What if we decide, I'm just throwing some examples out there. So what if we decide we want, if the residents decide that they want Plan 2, and the cost for Plan 2 is like 6.2 million. What are we going to do then? Or how close is our estimate to what we can deliver?
It will be closer as we move forward. So right now it's kind of still big ideas, general components to kind of get those priorities. And then we'll continue to kind of refine and recheck against that number. That might mean more planting, trying to reduce some of the safety surfacing areas, maybe making those tighter, slight refinements while keeping the main components. So that's kind of a standard process for design, especially in today's construction climate. And then working with Susan, Evelyn, and the rest of the staff to making sure everything kind of matches up. Susan?
If I can add in, MIG's been exceptionally responsible in the design process. They're not going to show something that, to the best of their knowledge, is not affordable. We have had examples of projects in the past couple of years where we thought they would cost $200,000, and we actually got a construction bid process that led it to a $400,000 bid. And sometimes that happens, but I have to say that MIG is doing everything possible to not show something that's outside of our budget constraints. So even if the community comes back and wants a gold-plated swing set, we won't show that because we can't afford that. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a couple more questions, if you don't mind, Chair. Let me just go ahead.
Yeah.
Now, with the survey, with regard to the survey, now the respondents, that of 55% of them were within that 1 mile radius or half a mile radius that you looked at, or was it like all over Cupertino? I mean, this 15 minutes.
It was a 15-minute walk. So it was within a kind of dashed line around the park.
Okay. And since there were only there were 308, which I think is a whole lot more than most surveys get. But so was there a way? Was there a way where you were taking the ad? I mean, how do you know that? What was the question in the survey that explained the 55%? Were you looking at the address?
We asked them if they were within walking distance, and they identified.
I see. Okay. Specifically. Okay. Yeah. Because a lot of times, I mean, we come up with not random, we come up with some conclusions, but it was the question exactly.
We specifically asked because we wanted to know if they were identified as being within walking distance themselves. So we did ask.
Okay. One more question. Actually, I have a couple more maybe, but at this point, when you use the word organic, were you trying to just say natural looking? Was there another word for organic? Was there something?
Words are always subjective. Yeah, words are always subjective. But organic was trying to kind of get something, yes, slightly more naturalistic or a little bit more flowy, maybe not angular or very architectural. So it is kind of more of a, it's a soft question. And so it is up to how people interpret it. But that was kind of the counter request.
Okay, because I was, anything organic has an expiry date. So I'm like, okay, what happens to the maintenance of this thing? Is there an issue? Which is my follow-up question, which is, these type of, this will be our first experience at an all-inclusive playground. I'm sure there's material there that works for kids with different abilities. Now, how much of that material requires regular maintenance? So if I put for my changes to 2027, 2034 before we make any changes or upgrades or fixes.
You broke up a little bit, but I would say that inclusive play is no different than any other playground. There is ongoing maintenance to make sure that things are well maintained, that the equipment is holding up. The pieces that are more subject to not lasting the life of a playground, which is somewhere between 15 and 20 years, give or take, depending on intensity of use, are going to be those natural pieces. So depending on what the nature retreats are, if they're planted materials, that might require a little bit more. We are looking at some logs and using some of the trees that the city is going to be losing in other places and repurposing them. Those might potentially be a consideration. But most of the equipment, is built for kids to use and adults to use and have that intensity. So just because it's all inclusive doesn't change anything. It's more the natural aspects and the natural elements that might need additional, out of the ordinary levels.
Okay. One other question with regard to the maintenance. What have you found? I mean, I had a little structure in my backyard and I had a little sandbox for my kids. My kids are adults now, but we're talking way back when. And unfortunately, our neighbor cats in the neighborhood decided that was their good place to hang out. So how would you do it in a public park with sand?
That is always the thing that comes up with sand and water. Cats inevitably get to be part of the conversation. It depends on how proximate the cats are. It is a consideration. We might look at some slightly different materials. Maybe it's more like pebbles. But sand is really great as far as that play and getting water and the ability to manipulate and component. So it's people have different stance on it.
Could we
backyard,
do
mud is sand and water. That's sand and water, just with a little bit more clay content, which then is more dirty. So then that becomes a concern as far as that manipulability. But in general, sand and water within a play area, it's usually more of a maintenance consideration and proximity and looking at adjacencies for sand moving outside of where it's intended to be played with. Cats are typically less of an issue unless you have a lot of feral cats and or cats expressing. But we have them in a lot of areas and they've been in a lot of places in public parks for decades. Okay. But it does vary area to area.
Okay.
Biggest bang for your buck though in play though.
Okay. One last question at this point. One comment. There was something about internal gathering areas. Can you comment on that?
Sure.
I didn't understand that.
Sure. Essentially, it's picnic tables that are located within the area off a central path. So there are opportunities for people to kind of gather in groups. So think about a birthday party or kind of a gathering of neighbors, that type of thing. That's what's implied. This is that the seating is a little bit more proximate, so you could have a gathering or other individuals using it at the same time. Either way.
Okay, I guess I'm done. That's all I have to comment on.
Oh, and thank you for those good questions and a lot of information. And Commissioner Remy, it's your turn.
Commissioner, you're muted.
Okay, just a couple of comments on what Commissioner Gopal was saying. So, Melissa, I thought just a few minutes ago you said that it might be easy to bring some renderings of the park. Did I understand you correctly?
Not for this phase. We are scoped for the singular vision that we bring forward after we get community feedback to provide a rendering. So that will be part of the next phase. But right now, there's still kind of, it's not either or, but it's two discussion points where we're starting the conversation to get us to what the final version will be.
Okay, and the second thing is, I just want a clarification that, did I hear you say that the budget that is earmarked, the 3.6 is that you can stay within the budget and we may or may not need the $1 million fundraising, or did I misunderstand you?
I will let Evelyn respond to the money.
Can you repeat?
Okay, because I think Evelyn was saying something about we need to raise $1 million, and I heard another comment. I wasn't sure if it was related. You said that we can't stay within budget. So I was not clear if you meant the 4-point-something million or the 3.6 million.
Can you repeat the question again?
Okay, let me reframe the question. Will this project be possible without the additional $1 million fundraising or not?
Yes, we currently have in the CIP budget 3.6 million. But as part of the grant application, we did submit stating that we will be fundraising a portion of the funds. And that is because these types of projects typically follow a certain model of fundraising in conjunction with grants and city funds.
And so is this more like best practice, or do we need the money?
We
through
do.
Fundraising, I mean, the additional money through fundraising. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. So we do need the money, just as to make sure that we are able to produce a project that meets all the grant requirements, not just the budget, but the site locations, the utilities, the play equipment, to make it a well-rounded within the play area.
So what is very confusing for me is right now, Melissa, you have not told us how much this thing is going to cost, but we, on the other hand, so I'm having a little bit of a disconnect between we need to have this amount of money versus here are the plans and what could be the potential cost. What is it? So where is it? Where are we really? Do we have a good understanding of we need 4 million to be able to do plan A, or we need 4 million to do plan B, or we can settle with a lower amount? What needs to give way? And lastly, my other question is, if we are not able to raise $1 million in fundraising, additional $1 million, what gives? Where is the art? How much is this art costing? And is art absolutely required to make this a viable proposition? Can we do without the art and use the art money for some other community project?
If I may, thank you. Thank you. The project total budget is 3.6 million. Of that 3.6 million, city funding is 1.2 million, and the external funding is 2.448 million. Of that 2.448 million, 1.448 million is the grant from the county, and the other $1 million is fundraising. So the project right now is scoped to spend the $3.6 million, and that includes MIG's fees and other consultants that may be involved in the project, as well as the construction costs. The $1 million is a requirement of the grant. We have to attempt to raise $1 million. It may be that the city can elect to contribute another $1 million if we find that the fundraising isn't working. So then the city would be required to contribute more. If we find that we can't raise $1 million and the city's not willing to raise more money, to contribute more money, then we'll have to renegotiate the grant. Does that help?
It helps in the sense, yes, that helps from the legal point of view in terms of the money. What I want to understand is, are the plans that we just saw, can they fall within that budget, or are they, or it is under budget? Let's say, for example, this is a viable project for 2 million, but we need for all these legal reasons, it needs to be 4 million. So then does that mean that we need to make sure that we are spending 4 million?
MIG has been tasked to design a project within budget, and we are doing our best to do that. At this point, it is very conceptual. They have used their experience to design something that is within budget, but we haven't got detailed cost estimates yet.
Got it. And if there is a spillover of the budget, or we have money left over, is that a problem?
Having money left over is never a problem.
It's precisely my point that, let's try to leave money, additional money, so we can use it for other community related projects. And I'm not 100% convinced that art is the way where we should spend a lot of money when we have so many other projects for Cupertino.
I will say it is aspect of it.
Yeah, art
Yes,
is integral to the design of the
which I love
playground.
within reason, right? How much is the art costing is my point.
Yes.
To be determined.
Yes. So what's a good number? And I'm not saying we need the answer today, but you know where I'm going, right? With my thought process. I don't want us to kind of balloon the art budget so much that could probably be used in better ways for other parks, for instance.
I will comment that in everything that we do at the city, we are tasked with being fiscally responsible to spend our tax dollars, taxpayers' money responsibly. We have to account for so much of what we do financially. It's on our minds on a regular basis. Having said that, the other side of that is that the art concept or the experience of art is a valid part of this playground experience. So we will do our best to responsibly balance that with need for the design.
Thank you very much, Susan. I completely understand. And I think I did not mean to suggest that it was wasteful, but I was just saying that when you cost balance it, what does it cost and how does it add value? And are we
it
keeping...
is also, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's also very responsible of you to ask the question, so I don't mind it when you did. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see the Vice Chair Begor have more questions.
Just a little bit of clarity based on the discussion just now. So the 2.4 million that is granted by the Santa Clara County is contingent on us raising $1 million, or is it contingent on us fundraising?
So it's contingent that we meet the match. So whether that be through through fundraising or city match, as long as we raise that additional match.
Okay, so we are supposed to somehow come up with 2.4 million, the exact match to what they've given.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we actually should be raising 1.2 million then, if the city has given us 1.2.
So the grant.
Sorry, is it okay? I think I'm getting confused too. Is it okay? I'm jumping to.
Sure.
I
yes.
think Santa Clara County has given 1.2, not 2.4, correct?
I'm confused. Yeah, that's what I'm confused over. Yeah, how much have they given?
So the grant is for 1.4 million. The city has contributed 1.2 million. The total CIP budget is 3.6 million. Of that, we have the 240,000 that's for construction contingency. That is not eligible for grant reimbursement because it is not a hard cost. So, and then we have other items like fundraising and project administration that's also ineligible for grant reimbursement.
Yeah, so maybe if it is okay, Evelyn, I just want to summarize it. I just wanted to, in my head. So overall budget is 3.6, out of which 1.4 comes from Santa Clara County.
Yes.
City gives you 1.2, which comes to 2.6. But the budget is 3.6, so there is a gap of 1 million.
Already.
Which you need to go and fundraise it, period, right? Apart from that, it may go more because of those costs which Evelyn just called out. You cannot consume, it could be best within that 1.2 of it, but the city, Santa Clara County is not going to reimburse on those things because that's an enabler cost, but not the actual real hard cost. So looks like we are on a ballpark that we need to at least raise 1 million or if not more. And I don't think that, I know we had a discussion just now, we will have something surplus. I don't think that we will end up in for these kind of expenses. I think we need to, we're talking about 2 years from now in 2024. We have no idea what other inflations and given the current state, what other it is. But looks like 1 million is a must have.
Exactly. That wasn't clear to me. I was under the impression we were going with 3.6 million now plus another million, but now we're short of $1 million in the current 3.6.
Yeah.
Evelyn, is that right?
Yes, correct. And then the 1 million is the minimum. So if we raise more, then we have, you know, extra additional amenities that we can include, but at the minimum, we need to raise $1 million.
That might be an interesting question to ask in the survey. Like, how much are you willing to contribute? Because this thing's going to be frightfully expensive. I mean, we all would like to do the right thing, but how much of that right thing and how much money is available? So this is that's a real eye opener for me, that we don't have the 3.6 million. That I did not understand earlier.
Yeah, but we are actively looking for other grants. We are working through the campaign plan so we can go live and start, you know, announcing it to the public and, you know, start asking for donations, making connections and things like that.
Okay. And you had mentioned earlier that there were some hiccups. Can you comment on what the hiccups were?
So we initiated a contract with our our fundraising consultant in November, but with staff turnover, we weren't able to make the to start the connections between the community and start creating that plan.
I will add that we're very active with it now. We're doing our best. We've got a task force, a community task force, that is looking at the fundraising campaign and giving us feedback on that. And we're trying to move that forward because we will need to have those funds in place before we initiate a construction contract. So we're very aware of the timeline that's required.
So this community task force is made up by who? Or who became part of this community task force? Who selected them?
It was a combination of influential members of the community, former mayors, former council members, and they are volunteering their time to support this plan.
The fundraising campaign.
The campaign, yes, fundraising campaign.
And I have some question for this campaign. So I heard this campaign already started. So I'm wondering, did any commissioner could get a chance to get involved? Or because it's the first time I heard about it. I remember in our past meeting, we talked about the fundraising several times, and we talked about like the donation wall and several other ideas to promote that. But we didn't get a chance to know it's already started. We thought maybe commissioner will be more involved in this. So,
if I may, thank you, Chair. But at this point, we have initiated the task force that is looking at and giving feedback on the fundraising campaign. We actually haven't made a push for fundraising itself in the public yet, or we don't have a plan yet either. Because of we have to be careful to, we can only ask for money once. I mean, we can continue, but we have to be careful that we do it in a very intentional and conscious way. So we're treading lightly with that and trying to make sure that we have the right people involved who have good connections.
Excuse me, I'm not sure. There's some. Oh, so looks like my internet had some glitch. Okay. Sorry, because I didn't hear you clearly. I just want to make sure. So does that mean if the campaign started, commissioner may get a chance to get involved? Because I heard for the library expansion program, I heard at least 1 or 2 commissioners, they joined the fundraising team and they work closely with all the donors. I'm just wondering if this would happen for Park and the Recreation Commission.
There will be opportunity for the commissioners and the public to be involved in the campaign. We have not launched the campaign yet. We're still trying to formulate what that campaign is. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the information. Yeah.
Chair, sorry, I just want to jump in. I just want to remind everybody that what's actually agendized is feedback on the concepts. So we really need to try to stay on what's on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for reminding. And Commissioner Swamy is the next.
Thank you, Rachel, for reminding us that we need to stay on this. But if you will humor me, because you've spoken so much, I have just one question. It's a little bit off field, and also please forgive me because I'm relatively new. If fundraising is such a big issue, which it is, right? $1 million is a lot of money. There is actually this whole all-inclusive bathroom, if I remember, was $850,000. Just thinking out loud here, and please tell me that this is, I'm suspecting it's not even possible, but just as a quick question, if we run short of 1 million, that threatens this entire venture. Is it possible at all to say that we might put the inclusive bathroom on hold and put that $850,000 into this and come closer to the $1 million fundraising, rather than have both of those projects be threatened because of lack of budget? That was my one question. And my second question is, how much are we paying the consultant to help us fundraise?
The council would make the decisions about how the funds are allocated. So the first step is that the council is being asked to consider the additional bathroom project. So that is the first things underway. If we were to begin that project, we would be underway with that project and have expenditures that would happen before the $1 million question came into being. So the process would be that we would go back to council with decisions about expenditures, and probably would consider both parts of the project as a whole rather than as separate entities at that point. So we will be in conversation with council at that point if decisions need to be made. And I can't remember your second question.
The second question is, you said that you have hired a consultant for fundraising. How much are we paying the consultant to give us the consultation?
It's not that much.
Yeah, it's to create the campaign plan and support us, it's $39,000 just for creating the plan. Implementing it is a separate item, and we haven't even discussed that. It looks like we might do that internally.
We are doing it internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And next is Commissioner Kumarapan.
Thank you. I'm just going back onto the concept. So he said that when you get the feedback, and I just want to, Melissa, you can help me. So 2 rounds of these kind of on a outreach or programs, and then you have 1 month of it. In July it ends it, and then you will get it. And is it like within 2 months or within a month you'll come back with what are the best concept now with the combination of 1 and 2 or whatever? Is that right? I just want to miss the time. I didn't get the time.
Yeah, we are scoped to basically have the option based on the feedback in September. So that is the time frame.
Okay. The reason I ask is that it'll be good when we go on any of the next steps, right? I don't want to go in detail into the fundraising and whatnot. The next steps would be based on the plan and the feedback, and that's what will make the public to really come back and then contribute. So that's the reason.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good.
Hey.
Sure, I'm done.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we learned a lot from this conversation. Yeah, and if there's no more questions, then I think, I'll just call to end this agenda item. Is there still any?
Yeah, Chair, sorry. I think what was the expectation from the staff on this one? Just a discussion or any specific input? I missed it. What is the input they are looking for from us today? I know we are not voting it. That's fine. What is that expected?
Yeah, good question. Maybe I missed something because I came here. Yeah, I joined too late. Yeah.
My understanding was to receive an update.
Receive an update, and then if commissioners can provide feedback on the concepts.
which we have given enough, I believe, at this point through questions. Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so we can go to agenda number 5, update on fiscal year 2021 and 2022 city work program item, senior strategy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce Alex Corvallis, the Recreation Coordinator.
Hi, everyone. I think I've met many of you having presented before on some other items. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here so you all can see my presentation. Sorry, it doesn't. There we go. All right. So, as Commissioner Shu mentioned, this is an update on senior strategy. We came and presented to you a number of months ago on a survey that we were doing in regards to a city work program item, and I'm here to speak to you about that tonight. So for some background, for fiscal year 2021-2022, the city work program includes an item titled Senior Strategy, with a stated objective to address the needs of seniors in 5 focus areas: technology resources, housing, food supply, transportation, and mental and physical health and well-being. A survey was developed to determine seniors' awareness of existing available resources which address these needs. The survey results and preliminary outreach plan will be presented to pertinent commissions, including Technology, Information and Communication, Housing, Library, and of course Parks and Recreation Commissions, and their feedback incorporated prior to a presentation of this item at a future City Council meeting. The initial questions of the survey were aimed to gain demographic data. Questions included associations to the city, Cupertino Senior Center membership, age, and living with someone who is 50 years of age or older. So you see here we had the vast majority of our respondents live in Cupertino. We had a pretty even split on whether or not our respondents were members of the senior center. Majority of our respondents were 50 years of age or older, and the majority also live with someone who is 50 years of age or older, and we received a total of 459 responses. I'm very sorry, this is missing. Oh, it is not. I apologize. It's not missing a slide. The resources we asked about for technology were the tech classes at the Cupertino Senior Center, public Wi-Fi in city buildings, public access computers at the Cupertino Library, and Cupertino Library resource workshops. Of the 5 resources listed for technology, respondents had the greatest awareness of public computers available at the Cupertino Library and were most likely to have used public Wi-Fi available at some city buildings. Respondents were least aware of getsetup.io, a virtual class platform with access sponsored by the Cupertino Library Foundation with support from the Cupertino Community Funding Grant Program. And for those of you that are more visual, for all of these resources, we're going to show you those results in table form and then in chart form. It's the same information. For housing, the resources we asked about were the below market rate housing program, senior adult legal assistance, West Valley Community Services, the long-term care ombudsman, Rebuilding Together, Housing Authority of the County of Santa Clara, Project Sentinel, Housing Trust Silicon Valley, Habitat for Humanity, the Haven to Home program, and Catholic Charities. Of the 11 resources listed for housing, respondents had the greatest awareness of West Valley Community Services, Habitat for Humanity, and Catholic Charities. Respondents were least aware of the Housing Trust Silicon Valley and the Haven to Home program. In the area of food resources, we asked about Senior Nutrition Program, the West Valley Community Services, Second Harvest Food Bank, and Meals on Wheels. Of the 4 resources listed for food, respondents had the greatest awareness of Second Harvest Food Bank and Meals on Wheels, and respondents were least aware of the Senior Nutrition Program. For transportation, the resources we asked about were Via Cupertino, Ride, VTA Access, Heart of the Valley Services for Seniors, Roadrunners of El Camino Hospital, and Avenida Store to Door. Of the 6 resources listed for transportation, respondents had the greatest awareness of Via Cupertino and VTA Access, and respondents were least aware of the Avenida Store to Door program. Mental and physical health and well-being, the resources we asked about were the Cupertino Senior Center, Cupertino Parks and Recreation, Health Insurance Counseling and Advocacy Program, Senior Adults Legal Assistance, SourceWise, 211, Behavioral Health Services of Santa Clara County, Live Oak Adult Day Services, Veterans Administration, Catholic Charities Older Adult Behavioral Health Service, the Friendship Line, Adult Protective Services, and Maitri. Of the 13 resources listed for mental and physical health and well-being, respondents had the greatest awareness of Cupertino Parks and Recreation and the Cupertino Senior Center, with large portions of respondents, 61% and 41% respectively, having used the resource. Respondents were least aware of Maitri, a resource providing services to those experiencing domestic violence. Now, for all these resources, we do want to be able to refer seniors to resources that may be helpful to them. And to that end, we have a Senior Center resource webpage. This webpage was newly built in 2021 and lists a variety of resources of most interest to seniors. Prominently highlighted are agencies which are best equipped to direct seniors to appropriate resources, such as SourceWise and 211. And if you give me a moment to switch here, I'll give you a quick tour of the webpage. Seeing the webpage now? Yep, okay. So you see here we have listed prominently near the top, or at the top, SourceWise, 211 Santa Clara County, West Valley Community Services, and the Santa Clara County Department of Aging and Adult Services. What these all have in common is that they are agencies that can then, that are hubs of information that can then refer seniors to more specified resources that are applicable to their need at that time. We also have down here a variety of categories for things like our frequently requested resources, which runs things like tax preparation assistance or health insurance counseling. And then we have a pretty wide variety of other categories of resources for seniors that each have a variety of resources listed under them as well, depending on what they may need. Okay, now to switch back. So SourceWise offers resource information on a variety of topics, including housing, nutrition, health insurance, transportation, and more. Through a comprehensive network of resources, SourceWise offers education, support, and advocacy for all adults, their families, and their caregivers within Santa Clara County. 211 Bay Area is a program of the United Way. It is a comprehensive information and referral service for Santa Clara and other Bay Area counties. They connect over 37,000 Bay Area callers and texters each year with information about health and human services that are available to them. 211 phone and text services are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in 150 languages through phone interpretation. It is also available in English and Spanish for text message services. While a wealth of resources exist in the area, the survey has demonstrated that many seniors are unaware of these resources or what they do, and so we have some plans, preliminary plans for outreach. To connect seniors to these resources, staff proposes increasing the number of presenters and workshops at the Cupertino Senior Center from various organizations, as well as bringing back the Senior Center's annual resource fair, where these organizations can provide direct outreach to Cupertino seniors. Hosting a Senior Center table at Cupertino's community special events and festivals would also be a good avenue for outreach. reaching out to local clubs and organizations and requesting information about the city's senior resources webpage be shared within their publications could be beneficial. In addition, staff propose doing doable options for new city publications, such as a tear-out sheet of resources to be distributed in the Cupertino scene, refrigerator magnets with important phone numbers, a YouTube video tour of the resources page or a YouTube outreach videos in general, a commercial spot on Cupertino TV, billboard advertising, banner advertising at either of Memorial Park's banner spots, next door posts, sending out an email blast to the city's Gov Delivery email lists, and adding the senior resources page to the city's 311 app. Further promoting these organizations' pre-existing outreach efforts would prevent redundancy in efforts while also driving our seniors to the resources they may need. For example, 211 currently has a Guiding Light outreach initiative which has developed 60 and 30-second videos in both English and Spanish which explain their services and efforts. Promoting these videos on the city website or elsewhere would help to further the agency's reach and increase Cupertino seniors' awareness of 211. The project webpage for Senior Strategy hosts the full survey results for all 5 focus areas for view by the community. The webpage is the same site where the community was able to participate in the survey, which is engagecupertino.org/senior-resources. And now, if you have any questions for me, I'd love to hear your feedback on our outreach plan.
Thank you for the update. And I see Commissioner Kumarapan have some question.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Alex. It's a clarifying question because I do have a few other comments, but I'll wait for the discussion time. When you updated these slides and you mentioned, for example, if I take technology as the first one, you've given the technology, the 5 resources, what is the top, and then given the answers, but I couldn't figure it out which one they have used it or not. But I know looks like you have the data because I was looking at the slide fast and say, I know you talked about it. Oh, people know about the tech classes, public Wi-Fi, but not the get set up kind of. But I couldn't figure it out from these 2 consolidated slides. Where do I find that info?
That website, engagecupertino.org/senior-resources, the full survey data is there. It is a whole lot of data to try to include in a PowerPoint. So that's the aggregate of each category that we put in the PowerPoint, but you can see resource by resource what the results were.
Awesome. Yeah, I was looking at it. I know I tried to read your mind and said, okay, I know she's picking up a few things. What is the next one? But I couldn't figure it out where to. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks. And Vice Chair Begor.
I really just had a comment to what Commissioner Kumarapan had said, which is that any of the survey results, I had the same issue. I was like Commissioner Kumarapan, I was trying to read your mind too, Alex, trying to figure out like, how did you conclude that this one thing is more popular than the other thing? So it's very good to know that the results are there. But there's no way anybody has summarized those results. We just have to go through all the results, or maybe I
did summarize the results. They're all cleaned up and nice looking for people to easily understand. Okay. And they do have those narratives included that I presented to you now about pulling out which ones we're most and least aware of in the population. But as I mentioned, it's so many resources. It's information overload to look at it in a PowerPoint form, but it is there on the website.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. That's all I.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more clarification question, we just go to the next step to get the public comments. But looks like there's no community members online. Okay, if there's no public comments, we just go back to Commissioner's comments. Vice Chair Begor, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So it's, I mean, we've got some fantastic survey results and we've got a plan going, which also seems very reasonable. My question is, you know, do we have like a end date for this plan? Is this an ongoing plan? How do we measure our success of this plan? Are we going to do another survey in a year? What happens now?
That's an excellent question about measuring the success of the plan. That part has not been determined yet. This work plan item has been carried forward into the next fiscal year, but it has changed a little bit. So part of it will be determined by what council's feedback is once we get to them. But some of the things in our plan are things that we do to some degree already, but want to increase. And I would imagine those would be ongoing things. For example, presentations here at the Senior Center. That I can't see why we would taper them back down if they are reaching a lot of seniors. But other things like that tear out in the Cupertino scene wouldn't necessarily happen every month. It might happen annually or whatever the communications team determines is a reasonable rate.
Okay. What is the item on the work plan for Senior Center then?
Let me go back to that exact language for you. Sorry, it's at the very beginning. To get back.
No worries, no worries.
And unfortunately, I do not know the new language off the top of my head, but I know that it's been adjusted. So it's to address the needs of seniors in 5 focus areas: technology, resources, housing, food supply, transportation, and mental and physical health and well-being.
Okay, there's no specifics on how to address or what we're going to do. It's just carry on.
It's to work with council and commissions on those items.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, Commissioner Kumarapan, it's your turn.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. But first of all, I think I just wanted to, Alex, and I did go through the attached packet, and I think it does have those information, the consolidated information.
I believe it does, yeah.
Technology, all of them. It's not in the presentation slide, but the packet has it. Maybe that's my laziness. We didn't go through the packet fully because it's just 200 pages or 150. Rachel was challenging us to see that I was like worried that she might ask, tell me what is in 144 page and third line. I'm sorry. I didn't do that homework. The couple of questions or kind of comments on it is that is that the reason because of these awareness predominantly looks like more than 50%. If I take an average of looks like 50% of the program's availability is not known to the seniors. Is it because they don't come to Senior Center because we were on a COVID, so there's only a communication mechanism is through emails and electronic media kind of, and they didn't come out? Is it, have you ever attributed to this one to what could be the cause that 50% of the people didn't know?
So we didn't look into the cause. I will say roughly half of the people that answered the survey were not Senior Center members, which I think is great from the point of view of it really shows that we were managing to reach outside our Senior Center borders, Senior Center walls, so to speak, to get a hold of people. But that does mean we have a harder time determining why they don't need them. I will say some of the paper surveys we received, actually a fair number of them, people would make handwritten notes and say, well, I just don't need XYZ. So no, I don't know about this, but I don't need it. So some people don't need certain resources and that's why they don't know about them, but there have got to be people out there that need the resources and also don't know about them, which is why we're hoping to outreach more.
Got it. I think that looks like that means I think we should be able to pull in all these folks, reach out in general. Hey, you can come to Senior Center or you can join Senior Center, then you can get to know about more, right? Kind of looks like that's an
or at least you can call us and we can tell you where to go is really the important thing.
Perfect. Yeah. So that leads into my second comment is that are we doing anything now since we know that, for example, if they don't know anything about the library or West Valley or VTA or any of those, in general. One is we will make ourselves, our effort to put in to make sure that they are aware of it. But are we reaching out to those specific organizations, right? For example, Cupertino Library and others, and say, hey, this is the result of the feedback. This is the data we collected. It looks like your services are not known to seniors. Can you please put in your plan? Or can you do something from your end as well? Because I don't think that we will have a budget to go and make this awareness of individual organizations everywhere, but it'll be good to communicate to them that, hey, your existence is not yet known to 50% of the seniors in our city or in Cupertino. Could you please make it available? Do we have any plans to connect with them and collaborate and amp up the marketing or amp up the outreach?
So that is, frankly, a perfect example of what these meetings are for is suggestions like that about talking to agencies about upping their own outreach. So that's something I'll note down as feedback on our plan in for moving forward as we take this moving forward. I will say we sort of had that thought with things like promoting existing outreach, like I mentioned with 211 and that Guiding Light initiative. So we did have similar thoughts along those lines, but not directly reaching out to the organizations about how they outreach already.
Excellent. I think, yeah, I would strongly recommend, because it's also part of our one of the city-wide, our priorities or goals, right? Is that collaborate, partner with organizations and others to do it. This is a perfect opportunity. And we have the data and we can just go and share the data and make them, hey, let's work together. I'll do my part. You can do your part so that we can benefit the community at large. So I think that would be a very good initiative. So yeah, that's kind of at a high level I have it. I don't have any further point at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the comments. Are there any more questions? I didn't see anyone raised hands. Yeah. Okay, and thank you for all the update. And we really hope the senior can learn more about the resources. Maybe after pandemic, when more people come into the senior center in person, the situation will be better. Because I learned from my mom and her friends when they didn't visit the senior center in person, it's really hard for them to get information. Yeah, it's limited. Okay, and so we finished the item number 5. The next agenda item is consider rescheduling the July Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. So who is going to represent this?
So it's not really a presentation, but just so you know, the actual July meeting, City Council moved their meeting to the Thursday night that would normally be ours. In previous years, July has been a meeting we have often canceled. So we can talk about whether we need to reschedule or if we'd like to cancel that meeting and wait until the August meeting. Just so you know, there's really only one thing that would be on the agenda for that meeting, and it would basically just be bringing the work program items for the next year, but just the descriptions, not any actual like follow-up or feedback or anything like that. So.
Okay, Commissioner Kumarappan, you have some question?
Yeah, no, is it like it says July 22nd, but typically ours would be on July 7th. Is that right? If at all, if we have it, it's the first Thursday, which is July 7th. Is that right?
Yeah, it says July 2022. But yes, it's the July 7th meeting that will be a city council meeting that would normally be your meeting.
I see. Okay. And the question is, do we really reschedule it on either 15th, the 21st, 28th, whatever time it is, or should we simply cancel it and move on to August? Is that kind of a staff suggestion?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so for this item, do we need to vote for this, cancel or reschedule, or how can we?
Yeah, we can at least, Chair, if my suggestion would be, we can just share it right now, what do we think, and then, I don't know whether voting is needed, because it's just a direction to them. If we agree on, typically we do it in emails, right? Sometimes they ask it and we do it, so it looks like.
I am going to ask that we do a motion and vote on it.
Motion and vote on it too? Okay, got it.
Okay, so now, yeah, if you have anything to say, please raise your hand. I see.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Pego.
Okay, my quick question is, we do have another meeting in June scheduled, a special meeting. And
yes.
That date is, I don't have that at the top of my head. Does somebody have it, Jessica?
It's Monday, June 13th for the Triple Joint Commission meeting.
Okay.
It's going to be at 6:30.
Okay. So we won't be, I mean, it's a joint commission meeting, so we won't be really addressing any specific issues to Parks and Rec. So, I mean, does anyone have plans for July that they don't want to meet?
I'm available. I may not be available in August. I'm international travel. I work on August first 3 weeks. So I will try to attend it from India if the internet connection allows me. But July, I'm available.
Yes, actually, same here. I won't be available in the first 2 weeks in August, but in July, I'm pretty open.
Yeah, I have no problem in July too, so I'm fine with having a meeting. We just have to find a spot.
Yeah, maybe I think we can just discuss and then somebody can propose. I think it will be good to have it in July, but maybe we can skip August if you are planning to cancel rather than July. August would be, because I'm not going to be available. It's going to be difficult to address, and if Chair is also, we will have only 3 people, and I would prefer August could be one we can skip it, not the July. That would be my kind of comment. So, Swami,
I'm game for anything. I'm flexible. My only thing is I might be traveling, but I just don't know my travel schedule. So I'm whatever you all deem, I'll go with you guys.
So
okay.
I make a motion to not cancel the July and to cancel the August. Sorry, Rochelle, were you going to say something?
Well, I just wanted to kind of reiterate that there's actually not anything to really put on the agenda for July. So the only thing I would be able to bring you guys is literally what City Council is approving in the way of the work program. But that would be just a presentation on that information. It would not be an update on any of the items or follow up on any of the items. So I just wanted to make sure you guys are clear with that it's not going to be a robust meeting in any way, shape, or form.
And I have a question. So if we move our August meeting to the end of August, would that be too late for some item? Yeah, looks like the first 2 or 3 weeks in August. Yeah, not convenient.
It actually might make sense to take a look at the work plan, because I think we voted on what we said we wanted to work on. So even though we may not have updates on this, it might be useful to take a look at what the work plan is that has been approved, so that then we can actually kind of, request even for what we want to hear from in September.
So just to your point, Mina, yes, that would be fine if you'd rather move the August meeting. That's not an issue either. We can also discuss that.
Okay, the first one looks like July, no content. That's the staff recommendations. There's not much content, but I would love to even have a light meeting. But if you think that it'll be done by in 30 minutes, you never know, Rachel. You know about us. And even if we bring one, and it will make sure that if it has to run for 3 hours, we know how to. But no, I'm just sharing. If it is an important update for the community, not for us, and in general, I was joking about it, but it'll be good for, if you think that some of those council things are important, related to Park and Rec. And if we can update the community through this forum, it's a good opportunity. That's what I meant, even if it is something we can do it. Otherwise, moving, anyway, we plan to move August or cancel, then I think it's a huge gap of 2 months. They may not be here. That's the only concern I have. That I wanted to be with the community, share with what we learned, even if it's just a replay of the last things what we get it from a council, especially related to Park and Rec. I think it will be good. That's my opinion. That's what I wanted to have.
You know, I'm aligned with what you're saying, Commissioner Kumarapan, but what I was thinking is instead of moving the August to the tail end of August, and then we meet again in the first week of September, we might retain the July and just cancel the August altogether, right?
Yes.
That's my proposal too.
Yeah, and I checked the calendar. It looks like the first Thursday is in September is September 1st.
Yeah,
that means
right. No sense
that
to
means
do
if we delay the August meeting, that's almost the same time as September meeting.
So just cancel August altogether.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, sorry, looks like Commissioner Sashi has a proposal or motion to get.
What I was trying to say was that, we have this playground survey that comes up. We could get some information on that. I'm sure it would be interesting.
In July,
right? It won't be ready by then, I believe, because it's going from June 14th to July 14th, 15th, whatever.
July 14th. Okay, never mind. Okay.
So may I make a motion that we will keep July meeting either on 14th, 20th, but I think the date we can finalize it through email, I believe. Jessica and Kevin, typically we do. We don't have to discuss and deliberate here. If at all, if you are okay with it, we can do 14 or 21. We'd like to keep the meeting in July, but cancel the August one. That's a motion I want to put forth here. The dates, pending the dates.
Sorry, Commissioner Begur, you were seconding it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I'm just wondering if there's any more comments from staff. If no, we just start the vote.
No, I'm just trying to double check whether, because right now what's agendized is July. So I'm trying to double check whether we can add the August one in, or if we just say we're going to move July and then we'll agendize canceling the August and the July meeting.
So that means maybe we need to discuss to cancel August meeting in July meeting, because we didn't let public know today we are going to touch the schedule of August meeting.
Correct. I'm sorry. Maybe.
Sorry.
Yeah. So okay, then I will amend, or I will restate. Thanks, Racha, for catching us, because it's very right thing to do. Is that I like to keep the July meeting on a date which we can finalize later, 14th or 21st or any other date in between. But I like to keep the July meeting, not to cancel it.
I second that.
Okay, so we can start to vote.
And just to clarify, so the motion is to cancel the July regularly scheduled meeting that's supposed to be on July 7th, and for staff to find a new date to schedule a special meeting on either the 14th or the 21st is what I'm hearing.
Or any date in between what the staff feels, and the room is available. I know the room, whatever it is. So yeah, that's exactly. I think you stated it much better than what I said. So.
Perfect, thank you. And so I think we're ready for the vote. So Commissioner Swamy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kumarapan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Begor?
Yes.
And Chair Shu?
Yes.
Motion passes with 4 yes and 1 absent.
Okay. Thank you. So we finished this item. Is there any more comments for this?
No. Finish the item, but I was going to talk about something else. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So the next one is just the monthly update report. I think, we can get the director report first.
Chair Shu, if I could just real quickly, we earlier in the meeting actually skipped over the May 18th special meeting minutes to review and approve those. So if we could go back to item 2, and then we can come back to the monthly updates after, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah. So now that's agenda item 2, the May 18, 2022 Parks and Recreation Commission special meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments for this one? If no, we just start to vote to approve the meeting minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the May 18th, 2022 Park and Rec Commission meeting minutes.
Okay, I second it.
All right. Commissioner Swamy?
Yes.
You should abstain. You were not at the meeting.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Sorry. Commissioner Kumarapan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Begor?
Yes.
And Chair Shu?
Yes.
Motion passes with 3 yes, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
Okay. Here comes the monthly update. Okay.
Would you like to begin with commissioners, or would you like me to begin?
Yeah, I think you just go forward.
Okay. All right, so I do have some updates for you. Council did approve extending the remote teleconference meetings. So now it's from the period of May 19th to June 18th. So for now, Parks and Rec Commission meetings will be virtual until further notice. I did notice on the June 7th agenda that they also have another agendized item to continue the teleconference meetings. So we will get more information after that meeting. On June 7th, community funding will be presented to City Council, and Chair Shu will be representing the commission and answering any questions on your recommendation. There is a community meeting planned for Monday, June 6th at 6:30 to discuss Blackberry Farm Golf Course. And the Blackberry Farm Golf Course feasibility study survey is live on Engage Cupertino and will close on July 15th, which you heard about earlier. And I don't know about you guys, but I got my postcard in the mail today. So those are out there for people also. And then we are having the open houses that were spoken about at Blackberry Farm. One will be Saturday, June 11th from 6 to 8 p.m. And one will be Monday, July 11th from 4 to 6 p.m. We do have the special joint meeting with Chilby Parks and Rec, Planning, and the Bike and Ped Commissions for Monday, June 13th to discuss Lawrence Mitty Park. And then the summer concert series is beginning on Thursdays. It'll begin June 16th at Memorial Park Amphitheater. Those will be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And they will go on Thursdays from June 16th until July 14th. And then, of course, we have our, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sashi.
Sorry. You're not sharing your slides?
Oh, no, no slides tonight, just information.
Okay.
And then we have our 4th of July celebration. We are back to our big, fun, exciting event. So we will have the pancake breakfast at Quinlan, activities and a concert at Memorial Park during the day, swimming at Blackberry Farm, and then the fireworks in the evening, which can be viewed from Creekside Park, Sedgwick Elementary School, and on Miller Avenue between Bollinger and Phil. Those are our 3 viewing sites for the fireworks. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And I just have one more question. So on my calendar, I saw in the past, I put a special meeting on June 16th. So is that already canceled? Maybe I made something wrong. I marked my calendar on June 16th. So
that was one of the dates, Chair Shu, that we threw out for the triple joint, but then we ended up landing on the Monday, June 13th date.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Thanks for the clarification. Are there any update from commissioners? I think the Vice Chair Bigor, you said you want to give some update. I misunderstood maybe.
More than an update, I was wondering who attended the mayor's meeting last month.
Oh, yeah.
Last month, no, the month before. I think I attended the last one. I updated it in the last meeting.
May 1?
Yeah.
Yeah. So any updates from that? Or?
Yeah.
And I have to go for the next one, I think.
Yeah, I did provide some updates, and I did take my notes there on it. It's predominantly on the Safety Commission and IT.
Right. Yeah, that's true. You did last time. Yeah, never mind.
No update, looks like, Chair. Chat is frozen or no? We cannot hear you, Chair, if you are talking, but we couldn't.
Oh, so there's no more update. That means.
No.
And the next mayor's meeting, Vice Chair Bigor will be there. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, I had volunteered way back, so I just realized it's come up on my calendar. Yes.
Okay. So if there's no more comments, I just announce the.
Looks like Jessica has something.
There's one more.
Oh, I was just wondering if we could talk about who's going to go to the mayor's meeting for July and August, just so we can get someone down. Because right now we only have till June.
Okay. For July, I think I can make it in July. Can put my name.
Okay, so that will be July 13th, Chair Shu.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And for August 10th.
It could be one of, I think since we all repeatedly attended the last week, and Sashi now and maybe Swami or Carol will be one of them by default choice, if you will.
Yeah.
Can you take it, Selena? Can you take it?
Mayor's meeting in August.
Attend the mayor's meeting in August.
In August, I could. My only thing that's up in the air is whether I need to travel a little bit. And I don't know what those dates are. If I'm in town, absolutely would take it.
So let's put your name down for right now, and then
we can put it for me right now. Yeah. Right.
Somebody can swap with you if you
Yes. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
And again, the time is what? What time is it?
So it'll be August 10th at 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So are there any more items for today?
Yep.
Okay. So I announce this is the end of Cupertino Parks and Recreation Commission meeting on July 2nd, 2022. And thank you, everyone.
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
You're already on vacation.